The story begins on the continent of Suntian during a grand event, the wedding of the Empress of the Celestial Demonic Sect. This type of ceremony was of extreme importance, something that stirred the entire cultivation world. Among the guests was none other than Lin Xiaoyao, also known as the Prince of the Dongxing Kingdom, the same place where the protagonist was at that moment. For those who did not know, Lin Xiaoyao's cultivation level had already reached the Earth Royal Realm, which was part of a vast hierarchy that began with the Warrior Realm and passed through many others until reaching the God Realm. The Empress, who was about to be married, on the other hand, was already in the Immortal Realm, which was only one level below the Divine. The problem was that the Celestial Empress had decided to marry a man considered a complete useless person. This man was Ning Tian, someone who had remained for 3 years without any significant progress, stuck at the 1-star warrior level, considered one of the weakest. He himself acknowledged his own failure, because despite his efforts during all that time, he could not move beyond the foundation of the cultivation path. On top of that, he had no idea why he had been chosen to marry the Empress. The Empress's name was Luo Wuqing, and her arrival ended up answering the doubt that Ning Tian carried. In truth, that marriage was only a facade, and Luo Wuqing made it clear he should not harbor any inappropriate thoughts about her. However, fate seemed to have other plans. Suddenly, Ning Tian received a mysterious system. He had been rewarded simply for being surprised by the situation. It was as if the universe, for some unknown reason, had given him this gift. Even though he was excited, he soon discovered that the system was not yet functioning. Meanwhile, Luo Wuqing continued speaking to him, asking whether he was paying attention, until Ning Tian, in an impulsive moment, told her to shut up. It was a bold action, especially coming from someone without any power, facing a woman capable of killing him with a single strike. Before he could be punished for his insolence, the system was finally activated. The reason was simple. He had surprised Luo Wuqing with his audacity. He received a skill called Aura Suppression, which allowed him to completely nullify an enemy's spiritual presence for 3 hours. Gradually, Ning Tian understood how the system worked. Basically, every time he scolded or shocked someone, he received new skills or rewards. With this new advantage, he looked directly at Luo Wuqing and declared that from that moment on, they were husband and wife. This statement generated another reward, a blood pill, a valuable item in the cultivation world. The unexpected attitude also shook the Empress, and the system continued to reward him. Luo Wuqing, furious, tried to attack Ning Tian and even launched a strike, but for some reason, she ended up straddling him, threatening to kill him right there. At that instant, Ning Tian's, already at his limit, activated his suppression skill. The effect was immediate. The Empress became so weakened that she collapsed on top of him, completely vulnerable. Taking advantage of the fact that he only had 3 hours with this advantage, Ning Tian decided to enjoy the moment to the fullest. According to him, if he were to die after that, he would die happy. 3 hours passed, and now, theoretically, Luo Wuqing could no longer kill him. They were officially a couple. Even so, there was an important detail. If she took Ning Tian's life, Luo Wuqing would not be able to obtain the Celestial Demonic Manual, something fundamental for her advancement. For that reason, she decided to restrain herself, even though she was completely without strength at that moment. After all the chaos, Luo Wuqing ended up accepting the wedding ceremony, despite all of Ning Tian's unexpected actions. The most impressive part was that, even after causing so many disasters, he continued to receive more and more rewards from the system. Summarizing the situation, Ning Tian reached the level of 4-star warrior and also gained access to a status panel where he could freely improve his own attributes. Although he had not yet acquired any active skills, all of Ning Tian's statistics were multiplied by 10. In addition, he gained something called a divine physique. Curious about this new power, he tried to ask the system what it meant, but received no answer. Even so, he decided not to worry, since if it were something dangerous, he would have already suffered the consequences. In his mind, it did not matter how useless he had been until that moment. Now, with a system in his hands and married to the Empress, he promised himself that he would show everyone that he was also worthy of standing at the top of the world. Meanwhile, in the central palace, the ceremony continued. Everyone congratulated Luo Wuqing, who looked stunning in her wedding dress. But among the guests, there was someone who was far from pleased. Lin Xiaoyao, the prince of the Dongxing Kingdom, watched everything with a disappointed expression. He found it inconceivable that the Empress's husband was someone so weak and insignificant. Noticing this displeasure, Guang Shou, a cultivator at the same level as Lin Xiaoyao, took the opportunity to provoke him. He claimed that the prince would certainly be a far more worthy husband for Luo Wuqing. On the surface, Lin Xiaoyao tried to maintain his composure, but inside he burned with rage and wanted to know who the loser was who dared to marry the woman he loved. Soon after, it was time for the part of the ceremony when the groom was supposed to appear. However, Ning Tian had not yet arrived. In fact, he showed up about 5 minutes late. Upon arriving, he explained that the location was extremely far away, separated by thousands of kilometers, and that if he had not received the system's recent powers, he would not have have managed to arrive on time at all. He also commented that, since it was his first marriage, he did not have much experience with this kind of event. These statements left the entire audience in shock. Even Lin Xiaoyao began to criticize him, outraged by Ning Tian's attitude. But before the complaints could escalate, Ning Tian cut everyone off and ordered the ceremony to continue at once, saying they were already far too late. By doing so, he caused even more of an uproar among the guests. However, this bold attitude had a reason. Ning Tian knew that by shocking so many people at the same time, he could gain more rewards from the system. And in that place, surrounded by experts and nobles, he had the perfect opportunity to exploit this to the fullest. Nevertheless, among those present, Lin Xiaoyao, who was already obsessed with Luo Wuqing, could not endure the situation any longer. Impulsively, he challenged Ning Tian to a duel. Most people immediately supported the idea, since they considered it unacceptable for a mere one-star warrior to be the husband of the Celestial Empress. As a show of fairness, Lin Xiaoyao declared that he would use only half of his strength in the duel, making it clear that he did not want to be unfair, even when facing someone so weak. In truth, the prince had challenged Ning Tian only because he wanted to show off in front of Luo Wuqing and appear impressive to her. It was more than clear that Ning Tian would accept the duel. After all, this was yet another opportunity to accumulate what he called shock points, meaning rewards generated by the shocked reactions around him. With the challenge accepted, the fight began. Ning Tian, wearing a polite expression, offered the prince the first move, claiming that since he was the guest of honor at the celebration, it was a matter of respect. Naturally, Lin Xiaoyao refused, as he did not want to become the target of jokes. To him, as the strongest person present, it would be shameful to accept such an advantage against such a weak opponent. Everything was unfolding according to Ning Tian's plan. When he began to gather his power, negative comments quickly arose among the spectators. Many mocked him, saying that the empress was about to marry a complete useless person. Ning Tian, in turn, remarked sarcastically that his demonic palm technique was not even that good. Meanwhile, Lin Xiaoyao remained confident, saying that the attack was nothing more than a bluff. In his view, Ning Tian would not even be capable of leaving a scratch. However, everything changed the moment a gigantic palm of energy appeared on the battlefield. The audience was stunned. Even the prince was left speechless, completely shocked by the power on display. Before the fight, Lin Xiaoyao had sealed part of his own power to use only half of his strength, believing he would win easily. But when he sensed the danger, he tried to remove the seal. The problem was that he could not. When he looked around for an explanation, he realized that the one preventing the seal from being lifted was none other than Luo Wuqing. She was blocking his energy. Unable to escape, Lin Xiaoyao was struck directly. As he was hit, he asked why Luo Wuqing was helping someone like Ning Tian, whom he considered a complete failure. Faced with the outcome of the fight, the guests struggled to accept it. To them, it made no sense that Ning Tian could have learned such a technique. However, Luo Wuqing began to reflect on the possibility that Ning Tian was, in fact, the key to the Celestial Demonic Manual. After all, he had previously managed to suppress her aura. Perhaps there was something more behind all of this. While all of this was happening, Ning Tian himself was overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information coming from the system, like an old phone frozen by an overload of notifications. Among the many rewards, he received one called Charming Physique, which caused everyone around him to feel attracted to him without him having to do anything. This included even other men, which left him confused and unsure whether it was a blessing or a curse. Curious, Ning Tian looked at Luo Wuqing, trying to understand whether this new power also affected her. However, he decided to set that thought aside for the time being. While the audience was still reacting to what they had just witnessed, the defeated prince questioned why everyone was calling him trash. In response, Ning Tian stated that, in the end, he truly was trash. As a cultivator, he knew he could not expect to reach the peak of the world instantly. His progress was slow, and he acknowledged that. In his view, the real problem with others was arrogance. Many people there proclaimed themselves geniuses despite having insignificant achievements. Unexpectedly, several cultivators began to spit blood. Those words had struck them deeply. They were facing someone who recognized his own limitations, yet at the same time radiated an almost sacred presence. Whether this was the effect of the charming physique or not, no one could say for certain. Returning to the main matter, the wedding, one of the elders of the celestial demonic cult stepped forward and asked where Ning Tian had learned the demonic palm. Of course, he could not reveal the existence of the system, so he replied that he had learned the technique in a Buddhist scripture pavilion. He also stated that it had taken him only one day to master it. This strategically delivered claim triggered another wave of shock among the crowd, guaranteeing even more rewards for him. In truth, he had learned the technique in only 5 minutes. If he wanted, he could have said that and shocked everyone everyone even more. Even so, the audience was already completely terrified. In any case, the result of all this was that the elders of the celestial demonic sect began to recognize Ning Tian as someone truly talented, capable of rivaling even the Empress herself. They declared that the sect had finally found a disciple promising enough to face the dangers that were to come. As a consequence of this recognition, the system rewarded Ning Tian with an additional 1,000 cultivation aura points. Now that even the most powerful figures of the sect had accepted his presence, it was time to continue the wedding ceremony. He had already proven himself more than worthy of the Empress. Curiously, the same people who had despised him earlier now began to praise the couple, saying that the two of them matched perfectly. It was a classic example of how power changes people's opinions. During the ceremony, Luo Wuqing reflected silently. She hoped that everything would proceed according to the prophecy of the demon statue. According to that statue, if she married someone considered a failure, she would be able to obtain the long-desired celestial demonic manual. To better understand this, it was necessary to go back a few months in time. At that time, Luo Wuqing had visited a forbidden region in the mountains, where a gigantic demonic statue stood. There, she received an important revelation. If she accepted a marriage with a man deemed useless in the eyes of the world, the statue would grant her access to the manual. She needed this power to face 5 emperors and 3 powerful lords, all enemies who threatened the future of the celestial demonic sect, which had been growing and attracting too much attention. According to the ancient scriptures, if she obtained the secret manual, she would have enough power to become a goddess. There was a precedent. Thousands of years earlier, an ancient leader of the sect had done exactly that. She had relations with a man who possessed the divine physique, and through that she obtained the hidden manual. Therefore, to Luo Wuqing, the fact that Ning Tian was considered a loser did not matter. If he had that special physique, she would marry him without hesitation. Returning to the present, the ceremony continued amid applause and praise. However, among the guests, there was a man watching attentively. He stated that he would report the entire situation to the leader of the Celestial Spiritual Realm Alliance. This alliance was composed of great figures, including none other than Emperor Zhengtian, whose cultivation level was equal to Luo Wuqing's, the Immortal Emperor realm. Alongside him were the leader of the Jianmei sect, named Xu, and the legendary cultivator Tian Feng. The 3 of them were gathered together and were already discussing what had happened at the wedding ceremony. From the way things looked, there was a plan behind everything. They had expected the event to cause a major uproar, perhaps even a scandal. However, the moment Guangzhou contacted the emperor to report what had happened, everything changed. He explained that the so-called trash named Ning Tian was actually a true genius. Guangzhou described how the fight had gone, how Ning Tian had learned the demonic palm in just one day, and how he had humiliated the other cultivators by saying that everyone needed to recognize their place in the world. This revelation shook everyone present, leaving them stunned by the sudden turn of events. After hearing this, Emperor Zhengtian became furious. He said they needed to investigate more deeply who this Ning Tian really was. Meanwhile, Ning Tian himself was enjoying his wedding night. He reflected on the rewards he had received, especially the charming physique, which theoretically should have had some effect on Luo Wuqing. However, up to that moment, she had not shown any kind of reaction to this power, which left him confused. Putting his thoughts in order, Ning realized that if it were not for the system, he would not be anything special. Thinking calmly, it made no sense for him to demand anything now, but that was already in the past. Since he was in that situation, he decided to enjoy it as much as possible. At that moment, Ning activated his charming body and tried to call Luo Wuqing to stay with him. However, she completely ignored the attempt. She made it clear that she knew his physique very well and that it might work on other women, but not on her. Even so, unexpectedly, Luo Wuqing removed almost all of her clothes, simply to provoke him. She commented that Ning might want to do something, but could not, because he was afraid. With only the 2 of them in the room, Ning thought about proving his true worth. However, before he could do anything, his body became completely paralyzed. Luo Wuqing had used an extremely powerful aura suppression, leaving him standing still and unable to move. According to her, he would remain like that for the entire night. And that was exactly what happened. It was already late at night, and Ning was still frozen in place, looking like a zombie. Unable to move, he decided to make use of the situation in the only way possible. He began to circulate his aura and train his cultivation. When dawn arrived, he was finally able to leave the room. He had spent the entire night cultivating, since Luo Wuqing did not release him earlier. Even after cultivating all night, Ning only reached the level of 7-star warrior. It was considered slow progress. The system then informed him that to accelerate his growth, he would need to cultivate in a place with more abundant aura. Within the sect, there was a gigantic stone specifically meant for cultivation, where disciples could greatly increase their cultivation speed. Upon arriving at that place, Ning was able to cultivate much more efficiently. The people around him began to praise him, calling him a genius. However, after some time, he concluded that it was still not fast enough. This statement left everyone in shock, since the aura was being naturally drawn toward him without any visible effort. That was when Ning explained that he could only release his cultivation power at a level 10 times higher than normal. When he increased his absorption tenfold, a strong tremor spread out, and he began to draw in the aura of nearly the entire cultivation base. Because of this extraordinary event, he ended up acquiring the technique known as the Water Dragon Step. Thanks to the system, he learned this movement instantly, something that was clearly absurd yet unavoidable. After this training session, Ning was not exactly satisfied. Despite possessing an enormous amount of aura stored within his body, he realized that he had very few attack techniques. Thinking about this, he approached a young female disciple and asked where the sect's techniques were stored. Embarrassed, she explained that they were kept in the scripture repository. While explaining, the girl ended up calling Ning the Patriarch, which caught him by surprise. She explained that according to the sect's rules, whoever married the Empress received that title. Ning, however, did not like the idea. To him, Patriarch sounded far too old, so he preferred to be called Senior. Just hearing that caused the girl to react strangely, becoming completely nervous. Sometime later, Ning finally arrived at the scripture repository, but found an enormous line waiting to enter. The moment the other disciples recognized him, several women approached him at the same time, saying that they wanted to marry him, causing a massive commotion at the place. Meanwhile, Ning was starting to lose points with the men of the sect. In the middle of all that chaos, an elder suddenly appeared. His name was Gu Yan, one of the sect's elders, known for being extremely strict. According to rumors among the disciples, he was not someone who went easy on anyone. However, the moment Gu Yan saw Ning, his attitude changed completely. He greeted him calmly and asked whether he was heading to the scripture repository. The elder explained that he possessed the key to the place, and that Ning could enter whenever he wished, even having permission to consult the sect's forbidden books. While Gu Yan was still explaining how the repository functioned, Ning simply disappeared. In the next moment, he had already appeared directly on the 5th floor. This left everyone completely shocked, because each floor possessed a different level of aura suppression. In theory, Ning should not have been able to reach even the 3rd floor, let alone the 5th. Inside the repository, Ning began walking through countless shelves filled with scriptures. He had numerous techniques available to learn, but everything depended on the amount of aura he possessed. Every time he learned a technique, a significant portion of that aura would be consumed. Because of this, he needed to think carefully before deciding which ability to acquire next. Following this line of reasoning, Ning, with the help of the system, found a powerful technique called the Demon King technique. It was an advanced Earth-level technique. Thanks to his tenfold aura absorption, one of the rewards he had obtained earlier, he managed to master this technique in only 3 minutes, reaching its maximum level in an absurd manner. The instant the technique was fully mastered, a massive disturbance occurred, frightening everyone outside the repository. Shortly after, Ning received a communication from Elder Gu Yan. Because of the special plaque he had received, it was possible to communicate with the outside even while inside the repository. The elder contacted him to confirm whether something had gone wrong. Ning explained that only a few spiritual veins had opened. He tried to downplay the situation, stating that it was something normal. However, the truth was very different. Even after completing the technique, Ning still possessed more than half of his aura intact. This meant that he needed to learn even more techniques to fully consume and make use of that power. This information left Gu Yan extremely shocked. Because of the impact he caused on the elder, Ning ended up receiving another reward from the system. This time, it was a god-level technique. This technique unlocked the maximum potential of his divine physique, a physique different from the enchanting one he had obtained previously. In that world, martial arts were divided into 5 main classifications: God, Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Each of them also had subdivisions between high and low levels. Among them all, the God level was the rarest and most powerful, considered the absolute pinnacle. The God record represented the highest tier a technique could reach. Without wasting time, Ning began absorbing this new ability. At first, he felt no change, which made him think that he might have been too hasty. However, in the next instant, when the technique began to integrate into his body, he felt intense pain. It was as if his body was being destroyed and rebuilt at the same time. After enduring great suffering, Ning managed to absorb only about 30% of the technique. Even with his comprehension increased tenfold, he could not go beyond that. Still, considering that it was a god-level record, this was already impressive. Soon after, Ning began training this partially absorbed technique. The moment he circulated his aura, a visible change occurred outside. The disciples began to witness the formation of a spiritual sea. According to Gu Yan, the greater the amount of aura present in that sea, the more beneficial it was for cultivation. In simple terms, this meant that Ning possessed an absurdly high level of talent. His strength was so excessive that merely absorbing aura already caused visible disturbances around him, drawing energy from all directions as if he were a magnet. Even an old man with completely white hair appeared, questioning who was attacking the sect. He was none other than the Supreme Elder, an existence who until recently had been in isolated training. Because of that overwhelming aura that spread throughout the sect, he was forced to come out early. As a result, he failed to advance in his cultivation, which meant he had wasted a long period of preparation. In response to this, Gu Yan began to explain the entire situation. He mentioned that Luo Wuqing had recently gotten married. Upon hearing this, the emperor present was surprised and began to question who her husband was. He even considered whether it might be the emperor of the Divine Palace or the Lord of the Holy Snow, but Gu Yan denied both possibilities and explained that the husband was merely a disciple of their own sect. Before the Supreme Elder could become furious, believing that there was no one within the sect worthy of Luo Wuqing, she herself appeared. In a direct manner, she stated that her husband was extremely capable. Even so, the emperor did not want to accept this easily, as he believed that if she were to choose someone to marry, it should be someone truly strong. Luo Wuqing made it clear that she married whomever she wished, without needing anyone's approval. This demonstrated that, in the end, she truly held absolute authority within that sect. Meanwhile, on Ning's side, the situation became even more intense. As he circulated his energy, lightning began to appear around his body. According to the specialists present, this was a sign of the heavenly thunder tribulation, a phenomenon that occurred when the heavens rejected the emergence of someone excessively powerful. At the same time, his spiritual veins continued to expand. This left the emperor completely shocked. It was clear that Ning was not an ordinary disciple. If talent alone were considered, he could easily reach the emperor realm in the future. Externally, Luo Wuqing showed no reaction at all, but internally, she acknowledged that the path for him to become a divine existence was drawing ever closer. The tribulation began to grow far too strong. Realizing the danger, Luo Wuqing decided to protect him. In that vulnerable state, if Ning were struck by a direct attack, he would die without any chance to resist. After Luo Wuqing intervened and protected him, something unexpected happened. Her energy began to be absorbed by Ning. At first, this left her slightly surprised. The people outside also did not understand what was happening, since Luo Wuqing normally did not care about anyone other than herself. Even so, upon realizing that Ning was absorbing her aura, she decided to provide even more energy, simply to test his limits. The more she supplied, the more he absorbed. It was strange, but it was happening right before everyone's eyes. The amount of aura release was so great that, if not for Ning's presence, everyone there would have witnessed something they were not meant to see. Despite the situation, Ning maintained a minimum level of composure. Internally, he was also surprised by the fact that Luo Wuqing had protected him. Meanwhile, on the elder's side, Gu Yan asked the emperor how many spiritual veins he had opened during his first activation. The answer was 80 veins, a number that already made him a genius among geniuses. Observing Ning, Gu Yan commented that he would probably have opened around 40 or 50 veins. To be certain, he decided to ask him directly. Ning's response left everyone in shock. He stated that he had opened only 190 spiritual veins, as if that were a small number. This completely shattered any common notion of genius within the sect. At the same time, in the imperial court of the Dongxing Kingdom, two important figures observed the situation from afar. They were Tian Lao, a renowned physician, and Emperor Lin Bai. Both felt the impact of the aura that had emanated from the celestial demonic sect, causing even the foundation of the kingdom to tremble. In addition to the prince, who had returned from the wedding banquet completely dejected, a new problem had now emerged. The sect was becoming strong far too quickly. In response to this, Emperor Lin Bai suggested forming an alliance to destroy the celestial demonic sect. If that growth continued, there was a real possibility that the sect could end up replacing the imperial family itself. Elsewhere, three mysterious figures were discussing the tribulation that had just occurred. They tried to estimate the cultivation level of the person involved, but they could not reach a clear conclusion. According to the rumors circulating, within 6 months the celestial demonic sect was supposed to be destroyed. In their view, the sect had no way to defend itself, especially since Luo Wuqing was about to become a goddess. History itself already proved that reaching the god realm was not something simple. Many emperors had given their lives over the centuries and still failed to even touch that realm. Because of this, that tribulation was clearly linked to Luo Wuqing. If people so far away were able to sense it, it was almost certain that the entire world had also perceived it. Because of this, the Supreme Elder was deeply shaken. The fear in his eyes was evident as he began to suspect that Ning might truly become a god in the future. Turning attention back to Ning, something unexpected happened. Without any warning, Luo Wuqing approached and tore his clothes apart in front of everyone. This caused enormous shock among all present. However, she explained that she had done it only because there were still hidden injuries from the thunder tribulation in his body, and that they needed to be treated immediately. When Ning tried to thank her, her attitude changed completely. Without any ceremony, Luo Wuqing sent her own husband flying, throwing him out of the area. She made it clear that he would not die, since she had used only 10% of her power. In addition, she ordered that no one speak about what had happened that day. In her presence, no one dared to disagree. On Ning's side, the situation remained chaotic. After being thrown away, he ended up falling into an extremely problematic place. It was the sect's women's bathing area. Even when he tried to explain and claimed that he was not a pervert, no one believed him. Some female disciples even accused him of being a spy sent by the patriarch, without realizing that he himself held that title. The situation became even more absurd when some of them commented that if he wanted to see bodies, he only needed to ask, rather than spy in secret. Valuing his own life, Ning had no choice but to flee as quickly as possible. Internally, he realized that he urgently needed to deactivate his enchanting physique, as that ability was becoming a real threat to his survival. Soon after, Luo Wuqing appeared again. She asked whether he had already taken a bath, and if not, suggested that he bathe together with her. Not long after, the two headed to a cave located in a forbidden region of the sect. It was the same place Luo Wuqing had discovered months earlier, where an ancient stone statue existed. Upon arriving before the statue, Luo Wuqing asked Ning to leave a bit of his blood essence on it. Blood essence represented the purest energy of a cultivator and possessed extremely high value. She made it clear that she did not want to harm him and stated that if she had intended to force him, she would have done so long ago. Faced with this situation, Ning began to reflect on everything that had happened since the marriage. It made no sense to him that an empress like Luo Wuqing would marry someone in his position. Even so, he decided to accept it, believing that it could be an opportunity to grow closer to her. The moment Ning placed his blood essence on the statue, a strange presence manifested. A ghost appeared before them. According to Luo Wuqing, that entity was most likely the founder of the celestial demonic sect. Surprised, Ning asked whether the founder was still alive, since the sect had existed for thousands of years. The ghost replied that someone with a divine physique had finally appeared. Upon hearing this, Luo Wuqing demanded to know where the manual she was seeking was located. The founder then revealed that everything had been his invention. He explained that, thanks to her naivety, he had managed to attract someone with a divine physique, saving an enormous amount of effort. With this revelation, Ning finally began to understand the true reason why Luo Wuqing had married him. At the same time, Luo Wuqing realized that the founder intended to use Ning's body to return to life. Faced with that possibility, she did not hesitate and attacked the ghost with the demonic palm. However, the attack had no effect. After all, he was merely a spirit and, moreover, the ancestral founder of the sect. Ignoring the attack, the ghost advanced straight toward Ning. Instead of fleeing, Ning made a risky decision. He seized the opportunity and allowed the founder to enter his body. As soon as the founder finally entered Ning's spiritual sea, he immediately realized the absurd amount of energy that existed there. However, as he moved through that spiritual sea, he encountered something completely unexpected. Massive lightning anacondas were roaming the area. Not only that, they also carried thunder within their bodies. In the past, lightning and thunder did not usually coexist in such a manner. They were different forces, and to many, even opposites. In the spiritual world, the presence of these two energies together made no sense at all. Those creatures were real spiritual beasts. Since the founder was in a weakened state, any direct attack from them would cause real damage to his spirit. Realizing the danger, he tried to retreat and escape from that place. However, Ning had no intention of allowing that to happen. Faced with this situation, the founder was extremely shocked by Ning's ability to reason and react. It was precisely because of this display of intelligence that Ning ended up acquiring a new ability. It was a spiritual destruction ability, capable of destroying spirits and converting that destruction directly into power, further strengthening the user. With this ability active, Ning advanced without hesitation. The founder still tried to react and attack him, but achieved no results at all. Ning simply hurled one of the lightning anacondas at him, combining the attack with the spiritual destruction ability. With minimal effort, the founder's spirit was completely destroyed, without any chance of resistance. Outside, Luo Wuqing was deeply shaken. She had done all of this believing she would obtain a secret manual, only to discover that everything had been nothing more than a fraud. When she realized that the founder was trying to seize Ning's body, she decided to act immediately. Her intention was to kill her own husband before the founder could fully possess him. Before she could carry out this extreme plan, Ning regained full control of his body. This left her completely shocked. To make matters worse, he had become even stronger than before. The amount of power accumulated was so absurd that the system itself warned that, if that energy remained within him, Ning would end up destroying himself. At the critical moment, Luo Wuqing acted again. She approached and kissed him, draining the excess aura from his body. That was the fastest and most efficient way to prevent him from exploding due to the excess energy. After several successive drainings, almost all of the excess energy was removed. For Ning, this was somewhat frustrating, as he wanted to make even greater use of that power. Setting that aside, Luo Wuqing handed him a spiritual pearl that contained the energy of the spirit of the ancestral demon. She also warned him seriously. Cultivation needed to be done calmly and steadily. Advancing several levels at once, as he had been doing, was extremely dangerous and, sooner or later, could lead him to death. Ning accepted the warning without resistance. Then Luo Wuqing turned toward the founder's statue. The disdain she felt was so great that she destroyed it without hesitation. To her, that entity was not worthy of being considered part of the celestial demonic sect. Even while showing firmness on the outside, internally, Luo Wuqing felt an enormous weight. If things continued in that manner, the celestial demonic sect would end up being destroyed in the near future. And worst of all, at that pace, she knew that she might never manage to become a goddess. Since there was not much she could do at that moment, she decided to give her best to try to save everyone. On Ning's side, he began to clearly feel that he was about to advance in level. Because of that, he needed to focus entirely on cultivation. The divine physique he possessed once again showed just how overpowered it was. After some time, Ning became an 8-star black warrior and advanced once more, reaching the 1-star spiritual realm. Even after reaching that level, he knew he could not let his guard down. His power still needed to be stabilized. Otherwise, it would be like a child holding a powerful weapon, too strong to be properly controlled. The scene then shifted to the demonic shadow sect. A man named Yin Sanshi was presenting the results of his cultivation to his master. He had surpassed several levels in succession and reached the peak of the spiritual realm. To the leader of the demonic shadow sect, this was something extraordinary. With this level of power, they would certainly no longer be suppressed by the celestial demonic sect. Yin Sanshi commented that this was only natural, since ancient times, demons had always respected only the strongest. The celestial demonic sect possessed an extremely powerful empress who had led for hundreds of years, which made it clear that she was far from young. However, there was something the leader of the demonic shadow sect simply could not accept. In his view, that empress was far too benevolent to command a celestial demonic sect. In his eyes, someone in that position should spread chaos and destruction, not act in such a restrained manner. Because of this, the leader informed them that in 3 days, the celestial demonic sect would hold a Dao conference. Yin Sanshi would be sent as the representative of the demonic shadow sect. That would be the perfect opportunity to raise the sect's reputation, or in other words, to crush the members of the celestial demonic sect and leave unscathed. Growing increasingly irritated, the leader of the demonic shadow sect declared that he wanted to see with his own eyes how the empress intended to maintain her position as the leader of the demonic path. His anger was so great that it was evident even in his expression, showing just how much that situation bothered him. The scene then returned to Ning, who was reflecting on the battle he had fought against the ancestor within his own spiritual sea. He acknowledged that, if not for the lightning spiritual beast present there, he would certainly have died. Moreover, even after winning, he had nearly lost his life shortly afterward due to the absurd amount of power he had absorbed. That served as a clear warning that he needed to act with far greater caution from that point on. Setting that thought aside, the system instructed him to continue cultivating and make use of the moonlight aura, which was extremely dense around him. As Ning cultivated, several people in the distance began to notice him. Because of the special physique he possessed, the reaction was immediate. Many women were completely stunned, while envy began to grow among the men. These reactions ended up generating even more shock points for Ning. As a reward, the absorption speed of the moonlight aura increased tenfold. This meant that during the night, his cultivation would be 10 times faster than normal. Even without fully understanding how he had caused such a commotion, Ning did not waste the opportunity. He began cultivating with everything he had, absorbing the surrounding aura at an absurd speed. The phenomenon was so intense that it frightened everyone present, including a great elder who approached, intrigued by the unusual movement. A woman explained to the elder that the patriarch was cultivating and that everyone should remain silent. Taking advantage of the enormous amount of aura being absorbed, several people sat down around Ning, hoping to absorb at least a small portion of what was was left over. Not long after, thanks to the absurdly increased absorption rate, Ning reached the 2-star spiritual realm. That was ridiculously fast. According to the Great Elder himself, it had taken him a full 2 years to achieve the same breakthrough that Ning accomplished in just half an hour. To top it off, Ning did not stop there. The shock he caused to the Great Elder ended up generating yet another reward for him. This time, it was the cultivation of faith. The effect of this ability was simple to understand. The more people believed in Ning, the stronger he would become. With that, he now possessed nearly all the requirements of a complete protagonist. He had already been strong before, but now his gains accumulated continuously. Moreover, this ability functioned in an even more absurd way. Those who believed in Ning would have their cultivation speed doubled, and anything they gained in excess would be converted directly into power for him. Given this advantage, Ning quickly realized the value of turning a powerful individual into his follower. If he could get an elder, someone stronger than him at that moment, to cultivate with faith in him, the amount of aura he would receive would be enormous. Following this logic, Ning invited the Grand Elder to cultivate at his side. At first, the Elder refused. However, the people around them began to comment that they had advanced in level during cultivation. That alone was already strange, since it was not just 1 or 2 isolated cases. Several disciples had advanced at the same time. Because of this, the Grand Elder concluded that, since the Patriarch was calling, it would not make sense to refuse again. When the Grand Elder began to cultivate, he did not feel anything special at first. Then some people explained that to feel the true effect, he needed to declare his faith in the Patriarch. Even finding this strange, the Elder followed the instruction. The instant he declared his belief in Ning, the aura within his body practically doubled. This increase was immediately reflected in Ning, who began to receive even more benefits in his own cultivation. After that, the Grand Elder went to the Mooncliff region and apologized for cultivating there beside the Patriarch. Normally, he would not do something like that, but the density of aura in that place was much greater than usual. This ended up causing a great commotion. Luo Wuiqing commented that Ning had not even returned the previous night and was already causing such agitation within the sect. Returning to important matters, Luo Wuiqing gathered everyone because of the conference that would take place soon. This event would bring together various geniuses from different sects. In short, the goal was simple. The disciples of the celestial demonic sect could not fall below the others. 3 days later, several geniuses began to arrive, which already shocked everyone present. Among them were Ling Ao, the genius of the celestial sect, Yin Sanxi, representing the demonic shadow sect, and among the most outstanding of all, the Saint of Yaoqi. Everyone was quickly received by the celestial demonic sect. While walking, the Saint of Yaoqi noticed a disciple cultivating on top of a rock, while several others were positioned below him. Curious, she asked who that person was. At first, she thought he might be some genius of the sect. She was then informed that the man was, in fact, the patriarch of the sect. Hearing this, Ling Ao did not hide his disdain. To him, someone in the spiritual realm did not seem worthy of the title of patriarch. Meanwhile, near Ning, once again, some disciples advanced in level during cultivation. Ling Ao did not quite believe what he saw, but soon the beginning of the conference was announced. On the conference stage, the atmosphere was agitated. Many disciples showed enthusiasm and anticipation. Beside Luo Wuiqing and the Supreme Elder, both believed that this time the celestial demonic sect would certainly prove superior to the others. The only real concern was 3 specific opponents. Upon hearing this mention, Ning appeared, curious, asking who these 3 were. Luo Wuiqing barely had time to respond. In the next instant, Yin Sanxi appeared before them. Yin Sanxi's objective was simple. He wanted to discuss the Tao, using that discussion as a way to demonstrate the superiority of the demonic shadow sect. For many, this type of subject was difficult to understand, and precisely because of that, he believed he would have the advantage. Luo Wuiqing realized this immediately. There was an old saying that stated that if someone understood even a little of the Tao, they could advance in level even without cultivating directly. That made the situation extremely dangerous. On the side of the elders of the celestial demonic sect, the atmosphere was tense. In theory, that was not an appropriate discussion for that moment. If Yin Sanxi managed to stand out there, the sect would end up at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, Ning observed the situation in a carefree manner. He took a bite of an apple, and without any ceremony, asked whether all disciples of the demonic shadow sect were like Yin Sanxi. In his view, the opponent's behavior was so affected that he looked like someone pretending to be something he was not. Because of this, Yin Sanxi was clearly irritated, but he still insisted. He once again asked whether no one there was capable of having a conversation about the Tao with him. Ning replied with another question, asking whether that kind of discussion was really something worthy of being held at an official conference. Upon hearing this, Yin Sanxi was shocked. To him, it made no sense that someone like Ning, who was only in the spiritual realm, could respond in such a manner. Even some of the elders were doubtful, questioning whether the patriarch truly knew what he was talking about. Ning, however, stated that he did not understand why that question seemed so difficult. He explained that if the intention was to teach and clarify, then there was no problem in discussing the subject. Seizing the moment, Ning stepped onto the stage. Seeing this, Yin Sanshi began to mock the celestial demonic sect, saying that the sect was so desperate that it had sent someone of such a low level to respond to his provocation. Part of the audience began to believe this, including Ling Ao and even the saint of Yaochi, who were watching closely. Then Ning began to explain what the Tao was. He said that the Tao had no form, no sound, and no smell. It had no limits, was extremely vast, occupied no space, and at the same time could be infinitely small. In essence, the Tao was the total energy that governed everything that existed in the world. The moment these words were spoken, the audience erupted. Many were impressed by the clarity of the explanation. Even the saint of Yaochi showed surprise. With just a few sentences, Ning had silenced everyone. On Yin Sanshi's side, however, disbelief remained. That explanation did not seem to make sense to him. Noticing this, Ning continued. He explained that there were 3,000 different paths, and that each Tao had its own interpretation. To make it easier to understand, he used the Tao of the sword as an example. This path was based on sword intent and on the understanding the swordsman had of it. When someone learned how to wield a sword and understood its intent, that person was already walking the Tao of the sword. That alone was already a valid form of understanding the Tao. In summary, Ning explained that the Tao was not something that could be defined in just a few words. Each path had its own explanation, and each person had a unique understanding. In the end, the Tao was nothing more than the path that someone chose to follow. Upon hearing this, many disciples became visibly moved. The patriarch's words seemed to illuminate their minds. This time, Yin Sanshi did not even have the courage to refute him directly. Just by hearing that explanation, he himself ended up achieving a small breakthrough in his cultivation. Meanwhile, on Ning's side, the shock caused in so many people generated another system reward. He received an attack from the Great Emperor. It was not a permanent ability, but a single-use card capable of unleashing an attack at the peak of the Immortal Emperor realm one time. Faced with the whole situation, Yin Sanshi had no choice but to accept defeat. His plan had failed completely. At that moment, Yin Sanshi thought that if his sect leader needed anything, he would deal with it later. To him, it did not matter that the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect had managed to answer the question about the Tao. In his view, that sect's strength was far too weak, and sooner or later, it would be destroyed anyway. Taking advantage of the situation, Ling Ao decided to intervene. He asked whether Ning could teach him about the Tao of the sword. Ning accepted the request, both out of curiosity and to better gauge the level of understanding and ability that the system had been granting him. Thus, Ling Ao began his demonstration. He started to perform sword movements, trying to express his understanding of the Tao of the sword. In his hand was a treasure-grade weapon. In that world, weapons were divided into several levels. There were magical weapons, spiritual weapons, treasure weapons, immortal weapons, and above them, artifacts. There were even higher grades above artifacts, but no one present had ever seen anything like that. To comprehend the Tao of the sword, it was not enough to merely talk about it. It was necessary to execute real movements, feel the sword, and express intent through it. Ling Ao did exactly that, releasing all of his skill and technique. The most shocking detail was that Ning was not holding any sword at all. Even so, he stated that this was not a problem. Using only his aura, he shaped a gigantic manifestation of sword intent, which took the form of a colossal dragon. The pressure released was so absurd that, according to those present, if Ning had not been holding back, that single manifestation would have been enough to destroy the entire mountain. Realizing the danger, Ning quickly restrained himself and apologized, explaining that he still had not fully mastered that technique. Even so, it was already more than enough to leave Ling Ao completely stunned. The difference between them was far too clear to be ignored. Without even continuing the demonstration, Ling Ao gave up. With that, two of the three great geniuses had already been defeated without the need for direct confrontation. Only the Saint of Yaochi remained. Ning then asked her directly whether she would also like to learn something from him. Before the Saint could respond, an overwhelming aura suddenly erupted around Ning, pressing his body against the ground. Just by sensing that presence, he knew it belonged to a cultivator in the Immortal Emperor realm. Before Ning could be completely crushed, Luo Wuiqing intervened, blocking the pressure with her own aura. She already knew exactly who was responsible for that sudden appearance. A portal opened, and from it emerged none other than the leader of the demonic shadow sect. Alongside him appeared other terrifying figures. There were the leader of the Poison Valley, the soul-destroying elder, the leader of the Yin-Yang sect, and finally Madame Scorpion. According to Yin Sanshi's thoughts, those five were the strongest immortal emperors in the entire world. The problem was clear. All of them were there in direct opposition to Luo Wuiqing. Faced with that situation, the system informed Ning to remain calm. According to it, Luo Wuiqing was far stronger than she appeared. The best Ning could do at that moment moment was to observe everything from the sidelines. As soon as she turned her attention to the newcomers, Luo Wuqing directly questioned whether any of them intended to steal her position as the leader of the demonic path. That statement shocked the entire audience. She showed not the slightest fear before the 5 immortal emperors, imposing her presence in an absolute manner. Unable to tolerate such arrogance, the first to attack was the soul-destroying elder. He launched an attack using a low-grade immortal weapon, refined with more than 9,999 souls. That type of attack would not harm the physical body. If it hit the target, it would cause direct damage to the soul and spirit. Meanwhile, on Ning's side, the system warned him to take advantage of that situation. The thunder tribulation existing within him could be used to master that technique and even use those souls as a resource. On the side of the immortal emperors, Luo Wuqing realized something important. Those enemies had clearly prepared for a long time. After all, it was not common for someone to appear using such a high-grade weapon right in the first attack. The elder of the demonic shadow sect declared that this was obvious. They had prepared for every minute, precisely to ensure that they would be able to defeat Luo Wuqing. However, in the middle of that arrogant declaration by the immortal emperors, Ning appeared, saying that he himself would deal with the soul-destroying elder. That made no sense to anyone present, after all. The difference in realms was absurd. Before the situation spiraled even further out of control, Luo Wuqing finally released her true power. The pressure of her aura made the 5 immortal emperors tremble in the same instant. That was because, at that moment, she had already reached the 9-star immortal emperor realm. Even in the face of that overwhelming difference, the 5 still tried to attack her together. Luo Wuqing, however, needed only a single attack to neutralize all of them. Meanwhile, on the battlefield below, Ning took advantage of the chaos to steal the souls of the soul-destroying elder, rapidly strengthening his own power. The calmness with which he did this left everyone around completely shocked. That collective shock generated yet another reward for Ning. He awakened the Thunder Tribulation Restriction Formation. With this formation activated, Ning was able to quickly neutralize the soul-destroying elder. In addition, he stole not only the refined souls, but also the enemy's variability. That left the old man completely desperate. Even if they tried to react, there was nothing more they could do. Luo Wuqing was there and would eliminate all of them without difficulty. Faced with that, the immortal emperors attempted to flee. However, Luo Wuqing did not allow it. She hurled their bodies in all directions, scattering them across the battlefield. In a final effort, they attacked again using their most powerful techniques. However, only 4 advanced against Luo Wuqing. The soul-destroying elder headed toward Ning, as he still possessed the Great Emperor attack and the Soul Scroll. Upon realizing this, Luo Wuqing became completely enraged. She made it clear that if that old man dared to touch Ning, she would tear him apart without mercy. That threat was not empty. The other 4 immortal emperors could barely hold on. With just a single palm strike to each of them, Luo Wuqing sent them flying. Even so, she could not protect Ning in time. The soul-destroying elder charged toward him, leaving everyone around in a state of panic. With no other alternative, Ning activated the Great Emperor attack card. In the next instant, the soul-destroying elder was completely erased from existence. The attack shocked everyone present. Even Luo Wuqing was surprised. It made no sense for someone in the spiritual realm to be capable of releasing an attack at the level of a great immortal emperor. However, that power came at a cost. Ning began to cough up blood immediately after the attack. Even so, the result had been entirely favorable. Soon after, he collapsed due to extreme exhaustion. With Ning out of combat, Luo Wuqing's fury reached its peak. She declared that the remaining 4 would not escape. Then she drew a strange bow and fired at them. The attacks tore through the sky and eliminated almost all of them. The only one who managed to escape was the leader of the demonic shadow sect, who used a blood escape technique. Because of that, Luo Wuqing ordered the Grand Elder to immediately give chase. If that enemy managed to escape, the consequences could become far too severe in the future. Meanwhile, within the Righteous Alliance, the group had just received all the information about what had happened. Among them, the main topic was the fact that the 4 emperors had allied themselves against Luo Wuqing, given how absurdly strong she was. That seemed like a completely reckless decision. In addition, because of this incident, the name of the celestial demonic sect, as well as that of its patriarch, was rapidly spreading throughout the world. Faced with this, the white-haired elder stated that it was not a problem. According to him, when the leader of the celestial void god palace emerged from seclusion, everything would be resolved. He explained that this leader had reached the peak of the immortal emperor realm, the same realm as Luo Wuqing, which meant she would not be a worthy opponent. To them, it was only a matter of time before they eliminated everyone without any mercy. After an interval of 3 days, the scene returned to the celestial demonic sect. At that moment, Ning awakened and realized that his body was still extremely weak, barely able to move. As he tried to regain control, Luo Wuqing showed concern, certain that he had finally woken up. She approached to help him and, in the process, ended up removing her own clothes to make the care easier. Taking advantage of the situation, Ning became agitated, using that moment to generate shock points, even while internally claiming that he had no other intentions. Observing more closely, he realized just how beautiful his wife truly was, something he had not properly noticed before. On the other hand, Luo Wuqing noticed that his pulse was far too fast, which made her worried, imagining that his injuries might have worsened. Soon after, Ning began to bleed from the nose, which made Luo Wuqing realize that he was already conscious. As soon as he fully woke up, Ning looked attentively at his wife and commented that he had awakened to the best possible view. Despite the embarrassing situation, it was not exactly strange considering that they were now married. After some time, both of them got dressed and left the place. As they stepped outside, they realized that everyone was already waiting for the patriarch. This time, the one who was shocked was Ning himself, although it did not grant him any new ability. Even so, as more people began to believe in him, Ning continued to accumulate faith points. While he was being praised and flattered by the elders, Luo Wuqing presented several weapons, explaining that they were the immortal artifacts belonging to the 4 enemies she had defeated. Among them were the Wind Dragon Spear, the Black Tortoise Shield, and the Red Heaven Sword. According to Luo Wuqing, since Ning had been responsible for everything, he had the right to choose one of those weapons. Despite wanting to keep them all, Ning knew that he still did not possess enough strength to endure even a single immortal weapon, let alone 3. In the end, he chose the Red Heaven Sword. To ensure that the weapon truly recognized him as its master, he performed a blood contract, using the blood essence mentioned earlier. Because it was an immortal weapon, the sword possessed its own ego, which required Ning to subdue it. With the help of the system and his advantage as the protagonist, he managed to dominate it quickly. Even so, he noticed that the sword was weaker than before. Luo Wuqing explained that this was normal, since the weapon had adapted to Ning's current level, preventing excessive power from harming him. From that moment on, the sword's growth would depend solely on his own effort and strength. After that, Luo Wuqing mentioned that she had something to ask. She wanted to know what had really happened to the founder they encountered that day, the one who ended up entering Ning's body. Internally, Ning fell into conflict, as he knew that above the mortal emperor still existed far more powerful beings. Since he did not yet fully trust Luo Wuqing, he decided not to reveal the existence of the system or the secrets he carried, choosing not to answer. Luo Wuqing accepted this without pressing further and commented that, in the end, it was always good to be cautious, because there would always be someone stronger. Shortly after, a woman approached Luo Wuqing and informed her that Saint Yaoqi was requesting an audience with her. Sometime later, Luo Wuqing met with Saint Yaoqi for a direct conversation with Ioe. The request was for the celestial mirror of the celestial demonic sect, something that sounded extremely strange since it was the most precious treasure of the sect. Because of that, doubt was inevitable, as it made no sense for Saint Yaoqi to want to borrow such an important item. Saint Yaoqi explained that she could not reveal the exact reason at that moment. Even so, she made it clear that she could speak with her mother if there was resistance. If there was still no agreement, she was willing to carry out an exchange or even make a payment for the loan. In return for the mirror, the immortal elixir of Yaoqi would be offered, an extremely rare and valuable item. This elixir possessed an extraordinary effect, as it allowed someone at the peak of the immortal emperor realm, the same realm as Luo Wuqing, to have a chance to step into the demigod realm. In simple terms, if Luo Wuqing lent the mirror, she would gain not only a precious elixir, but also the opportunity to further elevate her own realm. Faced with such an absurd benefit, it was practically impossible to refuse. However, there was an additional condition. Ning would be responsible for delivering the mirror to the sacred land of Yaoqi, and the elixir would be used to increase the probability of his own realm breakthrough. Furthermore, according to Luo Wuqing, there existed in that place a special environment capable of strengthening Ning's physique even further. In the end, the one who would benefit the most from all of this was him. Since that opportunity had quite literally fallen into his lap, Ning accepted without hesitation. Even so, taking advantage of the moment, he commented that all the disciples of the sacred land of Yaoqi were women, and questioned whether Luo Wuqing was not worried that something might happen. Her response was simple and direct. She stated that she had no fear at all, and that if he did anything inappropriate, she would know exactly how to deal with the situation. Ning continued to provoke her, asking whether she was planning to become a widow. In response, Luo Wuqing simply returned the question, asking whether he intended to go cultivate on the mountain or lie in bed with her. Ning's choice was obvious. Even so, Luo Wuqing made it clear that she wanted something calmer and unhurried. They began by simply embracing embracing, and what happened afterward was left to the imagination. Sometime later, everyone already knew about the patriarch's departure, and many declared that he was worthy of that path. Faced with so much support, Ning stated that he needed to work even harder in his cultivation, as he now carried greater expectations than before. Setting that aside, the celestial mirror that Ning was to take to the sacred land of Yaochi was presented. As a precious treasure, it possessed special functions. Luo Wiqing engraved a formation directly onto the palm of Ning's hand, allowing him to control the mirror from a distance. In this way, even if someone tried to steal it, a simple snap of his fingers would cause the mirror to immediately return to his hand. In addition, there was no chance that the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect would travel on foot. For the journey, he would use the celestial Pegasus. Saint Yaochi would also be traveling with him, which sounded a bit strange since the carriage was not exactly spacious. To make his commitment to Luo Wiqing clear, Ning stated that he would not travel together with the saint inside the Pegasus. Perhaps moved by this attitude, Luo Wiqing summoned for him a spirit feather sparrow, a high-level spiritual beast equivalent to a cultivator in the Heavenly King realm. After a few farewells and preparations, the group finally set off toward the sacred land of Yaochi, no longer needing to travel on foot. During the journey, as the trip proceeded calmly, the three realms were explained. The celestial spiritual domain was located in the second heaven and was divided into two sides, the righteous and the demonic. The sacred land of Yaochi, on the other hand, had always maintained a neutral position, which was why neither side had ever dared to provoke it directly. Furthermore, if Ning truly managed to improve his physique in that place, he would obviously take full advantage of the opportunity. Interrupting his thoughts, Saint Yaochi informed Ning that the journey to the sacred land of Yaochi would take approximately 1 day and 1 night. Upon hearing this, Ning decided to use the time to cultivate, since he would remain flying throughout the entire journey. However, when Saint Yaochi noticed Ning absorbing the surrounding spiritual aura intensely and continuously, she was extremely shocked. That unexpected reaction ended up granting Ning an extra gain of joyful Dao, accumulating thousands of souls. As time passed, 1 day and 1 night were completed. During the journey, Ning managed to further stabilize his foundation and advance within the spiritual realm, making it clear that he had long surpassed the level of an ordinary warrior. Soon after, the group finally arrived at the sacred land of Yaochi, a place known for accepting only women as disciples. Even so, it was possible to see some men outside trying to get closer, attempting to talk or draw the attention of the cultivators. Taking advantage of the presence of so many gathered disciples, Saint Yaochi introduced Ning as the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect. As soon as they heard this, many disciples began to observe him with curiosity, commenting on his appearance and his naturally charming physique. That drew even more attention, generating murmurs everywhere. Outside, some men watched the scene with evident discomfort. Whenever they saw women praising Ning, resentment naturally arose, especially when imagining that he might be served by countless cultivators. Leaving that aside, Ning greeted the representatives of the sect politely. During that brief interaction, one of the holy sons of the sacred land of Yaochi ended up breaking through his own cultivation bottleneck simply from being impacted by Ning's words and presence. In the end, Ning helped someone advance in level without even realizing it. Without wasting time, Saint Yaochi explained that she was in a bit of a hurry and that they needed to meet the Queen Mother of the West immediately. Shortly afterward, Ning was led to the main palace. Inside the palace, countless women were gathered. Among them emerged an imposing figure, a woman with a refined appearance and an overwhelming aura, known as the Queen Mother of the West. As soon as she approached, she commented that Luo Wiqing's husband was truly not an ordinary person. Hearing this, Ning's heart began to beat faster without him understanding why. Shortly after, the system explained that this reaction came from the fact that the Queen Mother of the West possessed an extremely rare and powerful physique, very similar to his own. Her physique was even stronger, known as a naturally seductive and dominant physique. Not wanting to be overwhelmed, Ning immediately activated his divine physique, managing to resist the pressure. This deeply surprised the Queen Mother of the West, since almost no one could face her in that aspect, much less someone only in the spiritual realm. Realizing that the situation could get out of control, Ning asked her to stop those provocations. In response, the Queen Mother of the West apologized and decided to get straight to the point. She led him outside the palace to a dark lake filled with impurities and turbid energy. Naturally, Ning questioned why the lake was in such a state. The Queen Mother of the West explained that some disciples had made mistakes during cultivation, ending up contaminating the place. According to her, that lake could only be purified using the celestial mirror. This left Ning confused. To him, someone at the level of an empress should be able to solve something like that easily. However, the Queen Mother of the West explained that, despite being powerful, she did not possess every ability in existence. Even though he was suspicious, Ning decided not to question further, since in the end, he would still receive the elixir and the opportunity to strengthen his body. When Ning finally took out the celestial mirror, the Queen Mother of the West questioned whether he would truly be able to use the full power of that treasure, given that he was still in the spiritual realm. Ning replied that this would not be a problem, because Luo Wuqing had engraved a special formation directly onto his body, allowing him to control the mirror even without using all of his power. Upon seeing Ning activate the celestial mirror, both the disciples and the Queen Mother of the West were visibly shocked by the ease with which he manipulated such a powerful treasure. Because of this, Ning ended up receiving a body buff card, but he set that aside and focused only on his main task, which was cleaning the lake. At first, the strange substance present in the water seemed to resist the power of the celestial mirror. Even so, after applying a bit more effort, the entire lake was completely purified. The problem was that at the end of the process, Ning was completely exhausted. Before he could fall to the ground, Saint Yaoqi quickly approached and supported him. Seeing this, the Queen Mother of the West ordered Saint Yaoqi to take him to the guest quarters. She also made it clear that no one was allowed to approach the immortal spring without her direct permission. A short time after they left, something strange began to happen in the area of the purified lake, but that was left for later. Returning to Ning, he felt somewhat disappointed with his own strength, since he had used only a small portion of the celestial mirror's power and still ended up exhausted. Even so, he acknowledged that if it were not for the divine record, he would not have been able to recover it all. As a result, sometime later, Saint Yaoqi appeared, surprised to see him standing again, questioning how he had already recovered. Ning replied that he was completely fine. That unexpected conversation ended up surprising Saint Yaoqi, which caused Ning to gain even more aura. Seeing this, the Queen Mother of the West commented that it was better to be careful with certain words, although right after that, she herself moved too close to Ning, asking whether he was still tired and suggesting that he could stay there for a few days if he wished. Internally, Ning even considered the idea, but he replied that he could not stay. Taking advantage of the Queen Mother of the West being there, he mentioned the place Luo Wuqing had talked about, a location within the sacred land of Yaoqi that could further improve his physique. To his surprise, that place was precisely the immortal spring. The Queen Mother of the West explained that the immortal elixir would take about 2 months to be refined, and that after that, it could be sent to the celestial demonic sect. As for the use of the immortal spring, she imposed a condition. First, Ning would have to answer a question. She wanted to know who was more beautiful, her or his wife. Without hesitation, Ning replied that his wife was the most beautiful and that he was willing to risk his own life for her. Upon hearing this, the Queen Mother of the West was clearly irritated and simply threw him out the window, ordering him to go to the immortal spring immediately. Meanwhile, at the immortal spring, the Holy Sun had already arrived at the location. He was the same individual who had provoked Ning earlier. The effects of the spring were known for purifying meridians and strengthening the body. The true energy came from the waterfall, because once the water fell into the lake, it became ordinary. For that reason, disciples usually sat directly beneath the falling water to cultivate. As they approached the area, an entity in the form of a tree woman, known as Elder Qinglin, appeared and declared that men were not allowed to enter. It was quickly explained that the Holy Sun had received special authorization. Faced with that, Elder Qinglin allowed his entry. After moving forward a bit more, it became clear why men were normally not allowed in that place. The disciples cultivated there without any restraints, and a male presence was not welcome. As soon as they noticed a man approaching, some disciples began to react with hostility. Once again, it was explained that he had direct permission from the Queen Mother of the West, which made them accept the situation, even if reluctantly. At that exact moment, Ning suddenly appeared, falling directly into the spring area. By reflex, he began removing his clothes to enter the water. Seeing this, the Holy Sun immediately thought that Ning was doomed. To obtain that permission, he had personally begged the Queen Mother of the West, while Ning had simply appeared out of nowhere. In his mind, there was no doubt that Ning would face serious trouble because of that. However, unlike the Holy Sun, who was usually targeted with sticks and stones, the girls literally flocked to Ning's side. It even seemed amusing to him, but the situation did not last long. Suddenly, the saint declared that they should begin cultivation immediately, ending any distraction. She then made it clear to everyone that Ning also had permission to enter the immortal spring. Upon hearing this, the Holy Sun was clearly enraged. In his view, he should be the one in charge of that place from then on. Up to that point, little had been explained about who he truly was, which made his reaction even stranger. But the situation continued without further clarification. From Elder Qinglin's side, she commented that since both of them were going to the immortal spring, they should follow her. Meanwhile, the girls who were bathing excitedly commented that Ning would certainly break the saint's record, who had endured half an hour beneath the waterfall. In their opinion, he would definitely be able to strengthen his body even further. These comments stirred envy in the Holy Son, who was anything but holy at that moment. Consumed by that feeling, he proposed a bet with Ning to see who could last longer beneath the waterfall. Since he was the one who suggested the challenge, he decided to enter first, displaying excessive confidence. Half an hour passed, and the situation became embarrassing. The Holy Son's clothes were torn, he could not withstand the pressure, and he ended up humiliating himself in front of everyone. Even so, he remained confident, believing that Ning, being only in the spiritual realm, would not endure the waterfall for long. When it was his turn, Ning stood before the waterfall and realized that the pressure was overwhelming. Even so, using the divine scriptures, he stepped beneath it. At first, the water felt like small stones striking his body, causing no pain or discomfort. However, after some time, the sensation changed completely, as if a mountain were pressing against his back. Even so, he remained firm, to the point that his clothes were also torn apart. The Holy Son said with disdain that Ning would certainly fail, but contrary to that, the women around only praised Ning's physique, making it clear who was truly standing out. Meanwhile, the Holy Son, who once thought himself superior, began to be completely ignored. Turning his attention back to Ning, something strange began to happen. Dragons started to emerge from his body, and at the same time he began to perceive a peculiar sound, which he identified as the Tao of music. Upon hearing it, something connected in his mind. If there were 3,000 Tao paths and also 3,000 veins in the body, then if each vein could represent one path, he would be close to becoming invincible. Because of this, the saint was surprised to realize that Ning had released the spiritual vein of the musical dragon. The Holy Son, on the other hand, could no longer withstand the pressure, completely gave up, and began to cough up blood, as it was far too insane for him. Meanwhile, Ning remained beneath the waterfall, surrounded by the music echoing around him. The system then notified him that he had not directly absorbed the essence of the Tao of music, which caused the newly acquired spiritual veins to be weak. However, it also informed him that he could play music on his own, cooperating with the aura and melody of the spring to strengthen and open those spiritual veins. Realizing this, Ning remembered that he had previously acquired a domain related to the Tao of music. Without wasting time, he asked the saint to provide a guqin, the traditional instrument similar to a horizontal harp. Then, activating the 3,000 paths and using music, Ning began to play beneath the waterfall. The scene surprised everyone around. The melody spread throughout the area and even reached the Mother of the West, who was deeply impressed by the depth of that music and decided to personally go to the spring. While playing, Ning felt that something was still missing to complete that experience. This thought interrupted his concentration, making it clear that this breakthrough had not yet reached its final limit. Suddenly, the Mother of the West approached and asked whether Ning would accept her help. He tried to refuse, but she did not accept his refusal, as she had already perceived that he had not fully opened the Tao of music. Because of that, the Mother of the West began to play a flute. As soon as the melody echoed, Ning's heart beat faster, and he felt a tremendous force surge within him. Shortly afterward, countless musical dragons began to manifest around Ning's body, once again surprising the Mother of the West. She had only intended to help him a little, but the result turned out to be far more powerful than she expected. As a consequence of the shock this caused her, Ning received a new ability called 3 long-distance rotations, whose effect was not yet clear even to him. After that, Ning thanked the Mother of the West for her help. Taking advantage of the moment, she stepped even closer and commented that the two of them made a good pair, suggesting that they could be together. However, Ning had to refuse, as he already had a wife. This left the Mother of the West slightly disappointed, and she then stepped away without insisting. Since Ning still needed to improve his physique, he decided to use the body buff card he had received. 2.5 hours passed, and the women who were watching were already tired, as they believed the process should have ended long ago. In fact, the cultivation was nearing its end, as the system notified him that the effect of the card was running out. From that point on, Ning would need to use the aura of his inner sea to continue. But this became a problem, as he had consumed all of his aura while opening the Tao of music. As a result, he was forced to endure the overwhelming pressure of the waterfall using only his physical body, without any additional assistance. The pressure increased rapidly, and Ning ended up coughing up blood. Seeing this, the saint became worried and asked the Mother of the West whether they should help him. However, the Mother of the West replied that they should not, because Ning was a cultivator, and at that moment, he was fighting directly against heaven and earth. After a period of intense suffering, Ning finally managed to significantly improve his physique. In addition, after a long time, he also reached the 5-star spiritual realm. In the end, his gains were clear. He opened the Tao of music, raised his spiritual realm, and advanced the level of his physical body. While everyone congratulated Ning on his breakthrough, the Holy Son finally awakened. The first news he received was that Ning, someone he considered weaker, had endured 5 hours beneath the waterfall. This seemed completely completely absurd and impossible to believe. He also could not understand why so many women were clearly attracted to Ning, since in his view, strength was everything that mattered. Even admitting that Ning was handsome, that should not have been enough. Overcome by frustration, the Holy Son completely lost control. He tore off his own clothes, declared himself the #1 in the world, and ended up being evaluated by the Mother of the West as someone broken. His pride had been crushed and humiliated, leading him to an evident mental collapse. While the Saint and the Mother of the West were talking, their conversation was interrupted by screams from the women around the lake. The reason was simple. Ning's clothes had torn again. He immediately apologized, and the Mother of the West assured that the matter would not leave that place. Even so, she commented that Lu was truly a very lucky woman. Before Ning could say anything, an aura suddenly began to form around his body, emerging in a sudden and intense manner. It was enough to frighten even the Saint, since it made no sense for an aura to appear out of nowhere. The Mother of the West observed that since Ning was the only one inside the lake, it was certainly related to him. From what Ning could sense, that aura mixed thunder tribulation with the aura of immortal music. Because the energy in the lake was extremely abundant, the Saint and the Mother of the West began to wonder whether they should take advantage of the opportunity to cultivate as well. In the end, it was not just them. All the women present decided to enter the lake to cultivate, while Ning, completely exhausted, simply tried to enjoy the view before him. And Ning did not just enjoy the view. Because of the aura he was emitting, all the women around him began to continuously level up, absorbing that special energy without even realizing it. Because of this, Ning gradually began to gain faith points at a steady rate, until those points reached level 100, something that genuinely surprised him. As soon as he realized this, Ning quickly put on his clothes and informed the Mother of the West that he needed to leave. However, in her view, there was still room for a small tease. Even so, sometime later, she formally bid him farewell, making it clear that she wished he had stayed longer. Ning thanked her for everything he had gained there, but explained that he could not remain much longer, as his wife was probably missing him. In reality, he was also afraid of staying there overnight. The previous night, while he was sleeping, some women had tried to strike up conversations with him in the middle of the night, which made him quite uncomfortable. As a precaution, he preferred to avoid any similar situation. In addition, some female disciples were still looking at him strangely, which made Ning decide to leave as quickly as possible. While flying, Ning opened the map and realized that it would take about 1 day to reach the Dark Mountain Range. Even so, there was still roughly half the journey left until the Celestial Demonic Sect. While thinking about how to surprise Luo Wuqing upon his return, the system issued an urgent alert, warning that 2 existences from the immortal realm were nearby. In practice, the warning was not even necessary. A massive sphere of energy was already advancing toward him. To avoid death, Ning activated a skill card called Fast as Lightning, barely managing to dodge the attack. This startled the 2 attackers. One of them was the demonic shadow leader, who had managed to survive the previous confrontation. The goal of the 2 was to capture Ning and use him as a hostage against Luo Wuqing. Thanks to the skill card, Ning managed to put some distance between them, but he knew he could not stop. He could only use Fast as Lightning 2 more times before being completely out of options. Because of that, he needed to find another way to increase his chances of survival. Before he could think of a plan, Ning was suddenly restrained by the aura of the demonic shadow leader. Right behind him appeared the old acquaintance known as the Heavenly Vault Emperor, who stated that he was there because Ning had ruined his 2 holy sons. Even without remembering exactly who those sons were, the reason for the hatred was clear. Trapped by the demonic aura, Ning was struck from behind by the Heavenly Vault Emperor and violently sent crashing downward. After such a close and direct attack, the 2 emperors believed that Ning was already dead. However, that did not happen. Ning used a rejuvenation pill and managed to survive, deeply shocking the 2 emperors. In addition, during his escape, he had already used Fast as Lightning twice, which meant that he no longer possessed that skill card. That was, without a doubt, his last real chance to survive. Shortly afterward, the group passed through several cities, leaving ordinary cultivators completely confused. No one could understand why 2 emperors were chasing a single person. On Ning's side, the situation became even more critical when he was surrounded by the 2 enemies. However, that was already part of his calculations. Using the power of faith he had accumulated, Ning unleashed an extremely powerful attack against the Heavenly Vault Emperor, forcing him to retreat. Even so, there were still 2 enemies. The demonic shadow leader seized the opening and launched a deadly attack against Ning. With no chance to dodge, the strike seemed inevitable. It was at that moment that an unexpected creature appeared. A bird threw itself in front of the attack, knocked Ning away, and shielded him from the fatal blow, allowing him to escape for an instant. Faced with this scene, the 2 emperors began to mock Ning, since in the end, he had been saved by a mere bird. However, inside Ning, something completely changed. The humiliation made his anger explode, and he decided that he would kill every enemy standing before him. At that very moment, an aura belonging to Luo Wuqing began to manifest in the area. According to the two emperors, it was a spatial formation transfer. In simple terms, Luo Wuqing was teleporting there. For that reason, Ning needed to find a way to escape as quickly as possible. The problem was that his escape route was blocked by the Mother of the West, who suddenly appeared and scolded the two emperors without any restraint. To her, the situation was simply shameful, as it involved two immortal emperors attacking someone who was still only in the spiritual realm. It made absolutely no sense. Shortly after the Mother of the West arrived, Luo Wuqing finally appeared. At that moment, Ning, already badly battered, revealed that the spiritual feather sparrow had died protecting him. Upon hearing this, Luo Wuqing became completely enraged and even moved to advance toward the two emperors. However, Ning stopped her, making it clear that this time he would be the one to kill them. In response to this decision, the system immediately issued a warning. If Ning fought those emperors in his current state, he would certainly not survive. The system also informed him that the last time he had only escaped thanks to the rejuvenation pill, and that if he faced the emperors again, not even that pill would be able to save him. Even so, Ning refused to retreat. The spiritual feather sparrow had died to save him, and for that reason, he was willing to move forward, even if it cost him his own life. This decision was so extreme that it ended up shocking the system itself. As a reward for shocking the system, Ning received a special ability called Great Phantom of the Celestial Emperor, which could be used for 5 minutes. The moment the phantom manifested, everyone around was terrified, especially the two emperors. That absurd amount of power simply made no sense coming from someone like Ning. Without wasting time, Ning attacked the Heavenly Vault Emperor directly. At the same time, the demonic shadow leader tried to flee, but failed. Ning sent forth an enormous dragon that bit down on the enemy without mercy. The scene left Luo Wuqing and the Mother of the West completely shocked by the power he displayed. Even so, the demonic shadow leader had not yet died. He used an unknown ability that split his body into multiple parts. Some of those parts were destroyed by Luo Wuqing, others by the Mother of the West. However, Ning easily located the true body and destroyed it with a single simple strike. This time, the enemy died permanently. Using the final seconds remaining of the Great Phantom of the Celestial Emperor, Ning retrieved the body of the spiritual feather sparrow and built a grave for it. Seeing this, the Mother of the West commented that she had not imagined Ning would have such affection for a mere mount. Meanwhile, Luo Wuqing reflected in silence, realizing that he was a kind person, and that, despite everything, she had chosen the right one in the end. As soon as the power of the Great Phantom of the Celestial Emperor dissipated, Ning completely lost his strength and fainted, collapsing into Luo Wuqing's arms. Noticing that he was gravely injured, the Mother of the West immediately prepared to heal him. Her healing technique involved the Tao of music, and she began to play a flute to stabilize his injuries. Despite this, the Mother of the West made it clear that she had managed to heal almost all of the external wounds, but the internal ones were still severe. However, she knew another method of treatment. It was the Yaoqi elixir, which had originally been meant for Luo Wuqing. If it were given to Ning, there would be a real chance of completely healing his internal injuries. Upon hearing this, Luo Wuqing immediately asked that the elixir be given to Ning, deeply surprising the Mother of the West, since that meant giving up Luo Wuqing's only chance to reach the god level. Luo Wuqing replied firmly that she would never gamble with Ning's life. For that reason, she was willing to give everything for him. Thus, the two returned to the sacred land of Aoshi and placed Ning inside a bathtub prepared for the treatment. The Mother of the West then handed over the elixir for him to consume. She explained that although Ning was gravely injured, his spiritual sea and his spiritual veins remained intact, something extremely uncommon. The moment Ning swallowed the Yaoqi elixir, his condition began to change in a strange way. According to the Mother of the West, this was normal, as the elixir had mild side effects, similar to an aphrodisiac. Because of this, as his wife, Luo Wuqing understood very well what needed to be done. If nothing were done, and she showed hesitation, the Mother of the West was ready to intervene and call someone else. However, Luo Wuqing stated that she would handle it herself and asked the others to leave the room. As she began to remove her clothes, Luo Wuqing thought that, in the end, this was far more beneficial for Ning than for herself. Even so, she could not allow her husband to die. From that point on, nothing else was shown, and everything faded into white. In the next moment, Ning woke up, asking who was calling him. As he got up, he realized that his body was still very sore, especially around his waist. To make matters worse, there was a clear mark on his neck. Setting that aside, Ning felt a strange energy circulating within his body. According to the system, this was the active healing effect of the Yaoqi elixir, which was still being processed. With that energy, energy, Ning could immediately advance to the next level. Without hesitation, he began the breakthrough. Outside the room, Luo Wuqing was discussing everything that had happened with the Mother of the West. Luo Wuqing was visibly furious and stated that if she ever encountered anyone from the righteous sect trying to hunt members of her family again, she would personally deal with all of them. Changing the subject, the Mother of the West asked why Luo Wuqing was wearing robes from her sect. Faced with this, Luo Wuqing tried to avoid the topic, since she could not reveal that the night before Ning had torn her clothes. Interrupting the conversation, Ning's aura suddenly exploded, tearing apart even the roof of the place. He had advanced to the 6-star spiritual domain. Because he had surprised the Mother of the West, Ning received a new ability called Father of Music, along with the celestial sound slash. His comprehension continued to increase at a rapid pace. Shortly after, Luo Wuqing and the Mother of the West entered the room. The Mother of the West immediately stepped forward, showing concern for Ning's condition. Seeing this, Luo Wuqing felt somewhat uncomfortable, as he had just absorbed the medicinal power of the elixir and needed rest. Even so, when their eyes met, Luo Wuqing could not hide the concern she felt for him. For that reason, she asked him to remain calm, since his body was still recovering. Ning, however, stood up and stated that he was overflowing with energy and that he needed to properly thank his wife. Seeing the situation, the Mother of the West asked whether he had no one else to thank. In response, Ning promptly expressed his gratitude, acknowledging that the Yaoqi elixir had come from her sect, and that without it, he would not have survived. The Mother of the West explained that Ning did not need to thank her. She said that it would be enough for him to visit the sacred sect from time to time, as all the female disciples would be ready to welcome him. That sentence almost caused a major problem, as Ning came very close to losing his marriage and even his life because of it. Still, everything ended up remaining under control. Sometime later, at the celestial demonic sect, the elders were visibly worried, as Ning had disappeared together with the Empress. When they finally returned, the scene drew a great deal of attention. Luo Wuqing appeared carrying Ning, clinging to her, holding on like a small animal that did not want to let go. They could have arrived much faster, since emperors possessed the ability to travel through the void, but this was not possible precisely because of Ning's condition. As soon as he appeared, several elders and disciples approached, showing concern and asking whether everything was all right. However, that welcoming atmosphere was abruptly interrupted when a severely injured disciple arrived, reporting that the city of Celestial Wind had been massacred. Before dealing with any other matter, everyone realized that they needed to save that disciple, who was on the brink of death. Ning offered to heal him. The Supreme Elder showed hesitation, explaining that it was risky and that perhaps an ordinary medicine would be enough. Even so, Ning insisted, and Luo Wuqing herself also asked him to proceed with the treatment. Instead of using a common healing energy technique, Ning invoked a strange spiritual music. Rhythmic sounds began to echo, and as the melody continued, the disciple's body gradually recovered. Everyone was shocked to realize that the patriarch was using spiritual music to heal. Luo Wuqing was even more surprised, as she suspected that Ning had learned that technique indirectly during his own healing by the Mother of the West. Faced with that unexpected display, the system acknowledged the achievement, and Ning acquired a new ability called Swift Path, which allowed him to attack and retreat at the same time. In the end, the disciple was saved. As soon as he regained his strength, he knelt before Ning, begging them to avenge the massacre. The elder explained that this disciple had been sent to contain the unrest in the Celestial City, caused by the people of Coldwind Mountain, who were attacking the local residents. So that everyone could better understand the situation, the disciple began to recount what had happened. The city started being attacked by countless spiritual beasts. Among the defenders was Tian San, the injured disciple himself, accompanied by Li Changdi, a disciple of the Fire Palace of the Celestial Demonic Sect, and his close companion. After analyzing the situation, it became clear that the only remaining option was to flee, but that soon proved to be impossible. A man named Yi Leng, belonging to the Righteous Alliance and the Beast Tamer sect, blocked all escape routes. He attacked Changde, who managed to defend himself, but Tian San was not as fortunate and was struck directly. Confused and enraged, Changde questioned the reason for such rebellion and massacre against such a small city. Yi Leng coldly replied that it was necessary to exterminate the demons. At that moment, a woman who was being held captive by Yi Leng begged Changde to flee and warn the patriarch of the Celestial Demonic Sect. He hesitated, as he did not want to ask for help. However, when the woman had her chest pierced right before his eyes, Changde fell into despair. Consumed by hatred and madness, he failed to notice the approaching attack and ended up being crushed by the paw of a gigantic monster. To further humiliate the Celestial Demonic Sect, Yi Leng hung 2 bodies by the neck in front of the city, in full view of everyone. Tian San, who had been thrown far away during the attack, managed to return to the city sometime later and was confronted with that horrifying scene, which became deeply engraved in his mind. Upon hearing this account, one of the elders became completely enraged and asked Empress Luo Wuqing for permission to mobilize soldiers and destroy Cold Wind Mountain. However, Ning intervened and explained that it would not be so simple. He made it clear that it was not out of fear, but because the Beast Tamer sect was part of the Righteous Alliance. The leader of that alliance was an immortal emperor, someone as powerful as Luo Wuqing herself. If they attacked the Beast Tamers, the Righteous Alliance would not remain idle, and that would turn the massacre of a small city into a war between nations. Even so, the indignation was still great, and everyone wanted to know what form the revenge would take. Ning then asked everyone to calm down and explained that he already had a plan, and that it was quite simple. The idea was to act in the same way as the enemies. They would allow disciples of the same generation to go after the Beast Tamers to gain experience. Even if these disciples ended up killing enemies, the Righteous Alliance would not be able to do anything, since everything would be treated as training among young cultivators. One of the elders, however, pointed out that Yahello was extremely powerful and that they could not send just anyone. The disciples of the celestial demonic sect were, at most, in the Earth King realm, and no one there seemed capable of facing him. Faced with this, Ning volunteered to go personally, making it clear that, in the eyes of the righteous sect, he was not exactly someone considered righteous either. After hearing this, Luo Wuqing granted her permission, which made the elders even more apprehensive. They questioned the decision, since Ning's opponent would be Yahello, who had already been in the Earth King realm for at least a year and had certainly grown even stronger. Sending the patriarch on this mission seemed far too risky, as they could lose the leader of the sect. Even so, Luo Wuqing stated that everyone should trust their patriarch, because he was a man who always performed miracles. Faced with this statement, the elders had no choice but to accept it, since there was not much more they could do. At that moment, more people approached. They were companions of those who had died in the city of the Celestial Wind, and all of them asked to accompany Ning, wishing to avenge their brothers. Upon hearing this, Ning was left speechless. The Supreme Elder then declared that since they had shown such loyalty, the sect would repay them with strength. He summoned a special mount, a horse wrapped in flames, explaining that it was a second-ranked demonic beast. It was not exceptional in combat, but it possessed astonishing speed, which would allow Ning to reach the destination quickly. With everything decided, Ning immediately set off toward the Cold Wind Mountain, near the city of the Celestial Wind. During the journey, he noticed something strange. There were not only monster footprints on the mountain, but also human tracks mixed with blood, confirming that the Beast Tamer sect had passed through there. The intense smell of blood coming from the city of the Celestial Wind attracted countless monsters from the mountain. Faced with that absurd number of beasts, the companions tried to protect Ning, but he had no intention of being protected. In fact, he wanted to test his new abilities. The first of them was the Celestial Sound Slash, a technique that used sound vibrations as an attack. With a single movement, Ning eliminated an impressive number of monsters, shocking everyone around him. As a reward for that feat, he received 100 aura points, once again confirming that his power was on a completely different level than expected. Sometime later, when they arrived at the city of the Celestial Wind, they found two bodies hanging right at the gate. One was the body of a young woman, and the other was Changde's head. Upon observing the girl's body more closely, Ning noticed that there was something clenched in her hands. It was a piece of paper with a written message, in which she said that she hoped the patriarch would join her at Moon Cliff to cultivate when he returned. That woman was one of the people who remained in the lower part of the city, while Ning cultivated in the higher regions. Faced with that scene, Ning's fury reached a level difficult to describe. Even so, before acting, he asked everyone there to give the two dead a proper burial. After that, covered in blood and surrounded by signs of massacre, he decided to go directly after the people of the Beast Tamer sect. The scene then shifted to the place where the disciples of that sect were gathered. Some commented to Yahello that it was likely the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect would appear seeking revenge, but he showed no concern at all. On the contrary, he was relaxed, enjoying the presence of the woman by his side, completely confident in his position. That moment, however, did not last long. A strange wind suddenly appeared, putting all the disciples on alert. Soon after, bodies began to fall from the surrounding mountains, one after another, spreading panic. Before Yahello could react, even the woman beside him was sucked away by the wind and disappeared. Confused, he raised his gaze and managed to see only a single figure standing atop a cliff, watching everything from above. It was Ning. He coldly asked whether the so-called genius of the beast tamers was feeling fear. Yahello, realizing that the opponent in front of him did not seem particularly powerful at first glance, launched a sneak attack, claiming that Ning was nothing more than someone who hid in the smoke to survive. In response, Ning released only a fraction of his spiritual chi. That pressure alone was enough to make Yahello tremble. Before he could even understand what was happening, he was struck by a powerful blow from the divine demon palm. In that instant, Yahello finally realized that the man before him was the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect, which left him deeply shocked. Since his previous belief, believe was that Ning merely hid behind powerful women. For having caused such an impact on his enemy, Ning received from the system a new ability related to spiritual music called Tamer. This ability had special meaning because the Beast Tamer sect based its power on controlling monsters. Although there were few tamers, since powerful beasts were not easy to find, each one of them was equivalent to the strength of several ordinary cultivators. Understanding this, Ning let out a brief laugh and commented that he had already thought of a way to make Yahello pay for his sins in a truly sincere manner. Yahello, however, did not believe him. To him, it was obvious that Ning would eventually be defeated, since the righteous existed precisely to exterminate demons like him. However, Ning made it clear that the world did not work that way. According to him, only the strong had the right to decide which rules would be followed. And at that moment, the truth was simple. The weakest one there was not him, but Yahello. Yahello did not stand still and take the beating. He summoned several monsters using one of his abilities and ordered them all to charge at Ning. Ning felt no fear. In fact, he was surprised by the number of beasts that were summoned. Taking advantage of the situation, he used his musical technique and performed a simple melody, which converted all the monsters to his control. That shocked Yahello, because Ning had performed something similar to the beast call, a technique that until then only Yahello's master was capable of using. With all those beasts under his command, Ning did not hesitate and ordered them to attack Yahello. In the end, Yahello was beaten by the very monsters he had summoned. Even so, Ning did not allow Yahello to die there. He drew his sword and asked whether he had ever imagined going through such a situation, reminding him that not long ago he had done exactly the same thing in the city of the Celestial Wind, using monsters to massacre innocents. Then Ning pierced Yahello's body several times with precise strikes, causing extreme pain, but without killing him. All of this was done in the name of the disciples of his sect. After some time, Yahello began to beg to be killed, but Ning refused. He stated that Yahello had treated the disciples of the celestial demonic sect in the same way, and that now he had to endure the consequences. Realizing that he could not persuade Ning, Yahello tried to flee, but was quickly stopped. That punishment was the price of his sins. Sometime later, in the city of the Celestial Wind, all the dead received proper funerals. Ning returned to check whether everything was in order, and it was. What surprised everyone the most was the fact that Ning had brought with him the young master of the Beast Tamer sect, completely injured and humiliated. Ning explained that he had kept Yahello alive long enough to kneel and apologize to the victims. However, the anger of the people was far too great. Yahello barely had time to apologize. Shortly after, Ning did to him the same thing that had been done to the people of the city, hanging his body in front of everyone as final punishment. Soon after that, people arrived who had not witnessed the battle and were shocked to see that Ning had defeated Yahello without suffering even a single scratch. For having caused such a great commotion and recognition, Ning gained more aura points, advancing to the 4-star Earth realm. With everything resolved in the city, Ning declared that it was time to leave. At that moment, a strong tremor shook the ground. Ning quickly realized that it was not an earthquake, but the movement of countless beasts. To understand the cause, he went with a few people to the Darkwind Mountain. When they arrived there, they found a large number of monsters enveloped by an intense black aura, which immediately advanced against Ning. He once again used his spiritual music and managed to convert the beasts with ease. This left his companions completely shocked, because Ning already mastered the Tao of the sword, the Tao of music, and now also the Tao of beast taming. If he continued like this, many believed that he could reach thousands of Taos. Ignoring those thoughts, Ning questioned a lightning tiger about why all those beasts were running in panic. The tiger responded with growls and gestures, and Ning seemed to understand. He then asked the tiger to lead them to the deepest part of the forest, where the source of the fear originated. Sometime later, the tiger guided them to an extremely deep valley. At the bottom of that valley, there was an ancient tomb, which suddenly began to release a massive aura. This clearly indicated the emergence of a celestial treasure. The light it released was so intense that it reached the heavens, which would certainly attract countless cultivators. Realizing this, Ning accelerated. As soon as he reached the bottom of the valley, he was met with a sudden attack. He managed to dodge by instinct, and when he raised his gaze, he realized that he was facing a woman with serpentine features, enveloped in a strange and threatening presence. According to the system, that creature was a guardian beast of rank 7 or higher. A guardian stood above the Saint Emperor domain, which meant it was an absurdly powerful existence. Even so, since it was still considered a beast, Ning tried to use his beast taming ability. The attempt failed completely. Instead of being controlled, the serpent guardian became even more furious, threw Ning into the air, and restrained him before he could react. If that continued, Ning's death would be extremely cruel, as he would end up being devoured alive by the creature. However, the situation did not reach that point. A massive pillar of golden light descended from the sky to the ground, and from it emerged Luo Wuqing. Her appearance was not exactly unexpected, considering the level of the threat. The Serpent Guardian seemed to want to take advantage of Luo Wuqing's presence to act even more aggressively against Ning, but it did not even have time to move. Luo Wuqing attacked immediately, causing a devastating explosion. Even so, the serpent did not die. Instead, its body transformed into an enormous barrier. According to Luo Wuqing, this indicated that the place was an extremely high-level tomb, possibly belonging to an expert of the celestial realm or even the emperor level. Shortly after, cultivators from the Dongxing Kingdom arrived at the location, accompanied by Emperor Lin Bai. Lin Bai explained that with the appearance of a celestial treasure, it was natural for numerous factions to be drawn to it. According to information from the Dongxing Kingdom, the barrier would disappear and the tomb would open in about 10 days. As there was an implicit rule of priority for whoever found it first, the Dongxing Kingdom wished to cooperate with the celestial demonic sect. He stated that he did not desire any treasures from the tomb. His only objective was to obtain a pure herb to save his son. This explanation did not convince Ning, who pointed out that the emperor had countless talents under his command and should not need the help of the celestial demonic sect. In response, Lin Bai explained that the scriptures within the tomb could not be read by cultivators above the celestial domain. Furthermore, even if someone extremely powerful forced their way in, the items obtained would lose their value or simply evaporate. In short, only cultivators below the celestial realm could enter, and for that reason, the Dongxing Kingdom would send people without powerful equipment, avoiding conflicts with other factions. Ning immediately understood that Lin Bai intended to use the celestial demonic sect as a shield. He made it clear that he would not help the emperor's son, reminding him that this same son had caused great chaos at his wedding. According to Ning, that created a debt, not a favor. Even so, the emperor surprised everyone by offering a sincere apology. This left even his own subordinates shocked. Ning, upon seeing that unexpected attitude, began to think of an even more effective way to humiliate the emperor. Before he could say anything, Luo Wuqing intervened. She declared that she did not accept the apology, nor the proposal of cooperation. She explained that the presence of the Dongxing Kingdom would only bring trouble to her sect, and therefore she did not want help from anyone. The refusal enraged Lin Bai, who stated that Luo Wuqing would certainly regret that decision. After that, Luo Wuqing turned to Ning and said that if he did not want to get involved in any of that, he only needed to refuse. There was no need for her to keep trying to offend him here and there, because regardless of the choice he made, he would end up being stabbed anyway. Upon hearing this, Ning stated that he would find a way to reward his woman. Sometime later, the two went to a hot spring that he had discovered when he fell from the cliff. While they were there, Luo Wuqing showed concern for him, commenting on the risks that could arise and what might happen if something went wrong. She asked Ning to remain in that place until the tomb was opened. Meanwhile, she would send an elder to stay by his side, since she could not personally do much due to the rules that prevented them from entering that area. In short, Luo Wuqing would only observe, while Ning would have to do all the heavy work to ensure that their sect reached the top. However, he made it clear that he would not do anything for free. Since there were still a few days left before the tomb opened and he was hungry, he said that he needed to eat something to recover his strength. Hearing this, Luo Wuqing even asked how hungry he was, which made the situation a bit awkward. 10 days later, the barrier once again transformed into that monstrous serpent, and everyone was already gathered at the location. The entire group fought against the creature, and after being defeated, it stopped taking the form of a snake woman and returned to being just an ordinary serpent. As soon as the battle ended, people began to argue over who would enter first to obtain the treasure. Among those present was the leader of the sacred kingdom of Tianbao. Some people remembered that the area was under the responsibility of the celestial demonic sect, and that everyone should wait for someone from that sect to arrive before entering. However, an old man argued that this made no sense. According to him, if the celestial demonic sect truly wanted the treasure, they would already be there. Since no one had appeared, he concluded that they had probably left out of fear. But as always, the protagonist appeared at the final moment to make a flashy entrance. Ning arrived riding a lightning dragon. Seeing that scene, everyone was shocked, even more so when they noticed that the patriarch was present, while the saint appeared slightly flushed. The crowd soon began spreading various rumors about Ning. Without wasting time, Ning questioned why the Righteous Alliance was strolling through the lands of the celestial demonic sect. Hearing this, the old man became furious at being reprimanded by someone he considered weaker. However, the situation changed when a supreme elder suddenly appeared. Faced with that, the old man had to remain silent to avoid an unnecessary conflict. With the arrival of the celestial demonic sect, it was finally decided that they could enter. Taking advantage of the moment, Ning provoked the old man once more, but soon let it go, and asked who the other people around were. According to the saint, they were saints of the sacred land of Tianbao, namely Jin Bao Dao and his son Zhu Yuanbao, which sounded like a sequence of very similar names. Upon hearing that, Ning asked where those people had come from, stating that he did not even know that Tianbao possessed a sacred land. He even joked, asking whether they were rich or something like that. Yaoqi warned him to stop provoking them, saying that next time the Righteous Alliance would certainly not accept such humiliation. Even so, Ning told her not to worry since he was strong enough and there was no reason for concern. Returning to the main objective, the group finally reached the entrance of the tomb. At that moment, one of the men ordered a companion to open the door, using him as a test in case there was some kind of trap. As soon as the man touched the door, black energy exploded outward. A massive strike hit him, killing him instantly. Faced with that, the weaker disciples fell into panic, believing that it was the work of a ghost, and began to say that they would not enter under any circumstances. Suddenly, Ning heard a strange sound coming from inside the tomb. The noise was faint, almost imperceptible, and made no sense, since no one besides him seemed to have noticed it. However, shortly after, Yaoqi confirmed that she had also heard the same sound. This made it clear that it was not something ordinary, but rather the sound of a flute activating a music-based killing formation. Based on her knowledge, Yaoqi explained that the formation was used to eliminate intruders while consuming as little energy as possible. The goal was to kill those who tried to enter without requiring the controllers to keep the formation active for a long time. Because she was a saint and one of the greatest experts in musical arts, her words quickly convinced everyone around. Her explanation further increased the group's confidence in Ning, who was already being called a legendary patriarch. However, an important question arose. How would they enter the tomb without being killed by the musical formation? Yaoqi stated that there was a simple solution, which was to counter music with music. To do this, she would need a bit of aura from everyone present and Ning's help to perform a duet. Since the trap was extremely large, a single person would not be enough to neutralize it. Upon hearing this, some began to suspect that even more dangerous traps might exist inside the tomb, such as energy absorption formations. It was explained that if that type of trap appeared, there would be no great secret. One would simply need to break the formation. In extreme situations, only one person would be needed to trigger the trap at a time, allowing the others to advance. Ning did not agree with that logic, as it would mean sacrificing lives merely to open a path. One of the elders agreed with that cold view and stated that Ning should have come there already prepared for that kind of situation. In response, Ning said that if someone had to go first and risk their life, it would be better for the elder himself to do it, since theoretically, he did not have much time left to live. In addition, that would save resources for the rest of the group. Before the discussion could escalate, Yaoqi stated that it would not be necessary to sacrifice anyone to enter the tomb. She explained that she only needed a small amount of help from Ning. This made one of the elders question why she specifically needed him, since it made no sense for someone in the Earth Realm to master musical arts. Even so, it was clear that Ning possessed abilities that went beyond what he appeared to have. Returning to the plan, Yaoqi decided to transmit the sound rupture art to him so that the two of them could perform the necessary duet. At the moment she did this, she was visibly shaken just by touching his hand, something that had not happened before, when she had only observed the interactions between Ning and the Mother of the West. As soon as he received the technique, Ning comprehended it almost instantly. This shocked everyone present, who began to say that it made no sense for someone to learn such a complex art in such a short time. Faced with the doubts, Ning simply showed confidence, making it clear that he preferred to prove his ability through actions. Since he did not possess an instrument of his own, Yaoqi lent him hers. The moment Ning merely placed his fingers on the strings and produced a gentle sound, Yaoqi was visibly shaken. According to ancient traditions, allowing another person to play one's personal instrument was something extremely intimate. However, nothing actually happened. It was all just her inner thoughts. Returning to the main objective, as soon as the elders opened the tomb door and the black aura began to spread, Ning began the musical duet alongside Yaoqi. The harmony created by the two surprised not only Yaoqi, but also all the elders present. Contrary to expectations, Ning did not attack with a single note, but with an entire composition, powerful and perfectly structured. The impact of that music was so great that it shocked everyone around. As a direct consequence of this feat, Ning received a special treasure hunter card. That ability was extremely advantageous, considering that he was about to enter a tomb filled with treasures, greatly increasing his chances of finding the most powerful item hidden there. In any case, returning to the musical confrontation, after many successive notes, the combined attacks of Ning and Yaoqi finally struck struck the core of the formation. At the back of the hall, several statues were playing musical instruments, and it was there that the origin of the killing formation was destroyed. With that, the musical trap was completely broken. After the formation ended, Ning thanked Yaoqi for lending her instrument. However, when she saw him holding that object, she ended up stepping closer than she intended, and, without realizing it, found herself hugging him. That made it clear that Yaoqi was emotionally shaken, even though she tried to hide it. Without wasting any more time, the group entered the tomb. As soon as everyone crossed the entrance, the door closed behind them. The interior became completely dark with only a faint light remaining, briefly illuminating 3 gigantic statues. They had red eyes and seemed to be watching every person present. The presence of those statues caused immediate fear. Even the Supreme Elder asked Ning to stay back, as he felt that those things were not ordinary. Soon after, the threat was confirmed. The statues began to move and started attacking indiscriminately. The cultivators tried to fight back, but their attacks had no effect at all. On the contrary, each strike seemed to make the statues even stronger. The situation changed when one of the statues attacked a woman in the group. At that moment, Ning finally moved. He activated a spiritual destruction ability and, unlike the others, managed to directly injure the statue. In a short time, he destroyed it completely. The truth was that those statues moved thanks to the spirits sealed within them. By attacking the spirits directly, Ning completely nullified their existence. Realizing this, Ning immediately thought of the usefulness of those spirits for his own spiritual pearl. With that idea in mind, he advanced and destroyed another statue without difficulty. That display shocked most of the people present. This happened because, despite Ning being only in the Earth King realm in terms of spiritual level, his affinity with spiritual attacks was absurdly superior. Even cultivators with much higher rank levels were unable to do anything comparable to what he was demonstrating. Faced with that overwhelming strength, several women began to admire him in silence, while others felt deep envy. Ning, on the other hand, remained calm and focused, simply doing what needed to be done without caring about the reactions around him. For having surprised so many geniuses at once, Ning received the aura of divine cultivation. As soon as that happened, he realized that he was about to break through a barrier in his cultivation. For that reason, he asked the Supreme Elder to protect him. During a cultivation breakthrough, any interference could cause an energy deviation, which would result in the loss of everything he had achieved up to that point. While Ning gathered spiritual energy, everyone around was shocked to perceive the size of his spiritual sea, which was so vast that it seemed endless. Once again, for astonishing the elders present, Ning gained a new point of comprehension in the record of the gods. His comprehension rate increased from 30 to 40%. Although 10% seemed small, that advance allowed him to open several new spiritual veins. Even so, Ning decided not to deal with that at that moment. His focus was still on the tomb and the dangers that lay ahead. Sometime later, the group reached the main hall of the tomb. There, they found several extremely high-level techniques scattered throughout the place, as well as spiritual weapons of excellent quality. In short, it was clear that the owner of that tomb had lived surrounded by wealth and power. However, at the moment when some of the cultivators touched the weapons and began to get excited, saying that they were now invincible, something unexpected happened. A skeleton appeared before them. Curiously, only Ning noticed that something was wrong from the very beginning. Even so, as he observed the skeleton, he remained motionless. The situation became even more frightening when they noticed that the skeleton was sitting on a throne. That indicated that he was likely the true owner of the tomb. Even so, as always happens, one of the most reckless cultivators decided to approach the body. Ning tried to stop him, warning him not to touch the corpse. The warning was ignored. The man believed that Ning was simply afraid of the dead and stated that he would not let that spiritual weapon escape. The moment he tried to steal it, the skeleton awakened. A terrifying force began to drain the cultivator's spiritual energy, leaving everyone in shock. No one could understand what was happening. Many wondered whether the owner of the tomb had revived. It also made no sense for someone to try to touch the body directly when there were so many treasures scattered around. Ning quickly realized the reason. Faced with such wealth, an ambitious person would always try to take something even more valuable. That man's target was the ring on the skeleton's finger, a storage ring. Inside it was an extremely rare item known as the Moon Sword. Upon realizing this, the cultivator's master became furious, not because his disciple was in danger, but because he had tried to take something so precious without informing him. Even so, the old man tried to use his own disciple as a pretext, pretending that he was going to save him. However, his attack had no effect at all. The skeleton invoked a kind of dome around itself, completely blocking the strike and shattering the old man's weapon. Next, the elder was thrown far away, severely injured, while his disciple continued to be mercilessly drained. After completely draining the man's energy, the skeleton stood up from the throne. Its aura became even more oppressive, and it began to launch attacks in all directions. Some of these strikes even hit cultivators who were hiding, including members of the sacred land of Tianbao. This caused immediate outrage, as many were secretly trying to steal treasures while ignoring the agreement of fair division. Even so, Ning realized that this was not the moment for internal conflicts. The enemy before them was extremely powerful. That skeleton was in the celestial domain, a level far above anyone present there. Moreover, it became clear that this was not the tomb of an ordinary emperor, but of a great emperor, an even more terrifying existence. With the group's current power, facing it head-on was impossible. To make matters worse, the skeleton seemed to have chosen Ning as its main target, although even he did not know the reason. The only remaining option was to retreat while thinking of a way to survive. While Ning fled, 4 elders tried to attack the skeleton together. However, with just a simple movement of a finger, it stopped them. A cold laugh echoed through the hall, and an overwhelming pressure fell upon everyone, forcing them to the ground. Not even Ning, who was activating the record of the gods, managed to completely escape that oppression. Even so, he had no intention of standing still. Gathering his strength, Ning tried to counterattack, summoning an electric dragon in a final attempt to resist. Because of Ning's initiative, even the weakest cultivators found the courage to advance. In their eyes, Ning was the weakest among all those present, so if he could attack, they could as well. Thus, the entire group gathered and launched a coordinated charge against the skeleton. They expended an enormous amount of energy, but at first glance, it seemed to have accomplished nothing. However, something unexpected happened. From the skeleton's ring emerged a female voice, followed by the appearance of a little girl. She commented that Ning was quite clever and stated that she had liked him from the very beginning. It was then revealed that the skeleton had never been the true owner of that place. It was merely a facade created to deceive intruders. The true existence behind the tomb was that strange little girl. Faced with this revelation, no one around could believe it immediately. To make matters worse, she did not call the group thieves, but challengers. This made everyone realize that perhaps it was not exactly a tomb at all. It was possible that the entire place had been prepared as a trap, created to test those who dared to reach it. At that moment, Yaochi stepped forward respectfully and asked whether she could ask a question. Upon hearing the title of saint, the little girl remarked that she did not expect to see a new saint emerge so soon, especially after Yao Xuan. The Supreme Elder explained that this existence was known as the Third Great Sage. To clarify further, Yaochi explained that the Great Sage and the Great Saint had been 2 extremely powerful figures of the same generation and were known for their deep connection. According to ancient records, the Third Great Sage had followed the path to becoming a goddess alongside the Great Saint Yao Xuan around 300 years ago. Hearing this, everyone became even more confused, as they could not understand how that girl was still alive. The little girl herself replied, stating that this supposed path to becoming a god was nothing more than a path of destruction. To her, it did not matter whether someone was an emperor or not. Anyone who followed that path was destined to fail. Even so, because they were connected to Yao Xuan, she would not allow them to advance without receiving something in return. Next, she activated a powerful mental ability that began to pressure everyone's minds, nearly forcing them to lose consciousness. At that moment, Ning clearly perceived the attack and understood how absurd that girl's strength was. She had restrained 4 elders at the same time and practically crushed everyone else. Unable to react physically, Ning began to laugh. That reaction caught the girl by surprise, since despite appearing to be the weakest in terms of cultivation level, he was still able to keep his mind stable under that pressure. Ning then stated that she was wrong in her understanding. This irritated her, but Ning continued to explain that those who practiced the Tao were already, by definition, going against nature itself. If what she claimed were true, then that meant she had lost to the great Saint Yao Xuan in the past. Contrary to everyone's expectations, the girl did not become furious. Instead, she showed interest in Ning and even called him an emperor. That statement left everyone completely confused. To surprise them even more, the little girl offered to improve Ning's physique. To do so, she approached him and entered directly into his spiritual sea. As soon as she arrived inside, she apologized for the intrusion, but everything changed the instant she saw a storm spiritual dragon. That existence was, without exaggeration, a true god. Faced with this, the little girl became embarrassed and even apologized to the dragon itself. However, that did not help much. The spiritual dragon reacted immediately and attacked her, forcibly expelling her from Ning's spiritual sea. For having surprised even the third great sage, Ning received a new reward from the system. He obtained the mind-reading card, an ability that allowed him to read other people's thoughts for 1 hour before becoming unusable. After returning to the outside, the little girl commented that the physique she had intended to offer was clearly not good enough for Ning. He accepted her apology without pressing the matter and decided to move on. Going back a bit in time, the great saint explained that 300 years ago, she she had been gravely injured. At that time, only a final wisp of her spirit managed to remain. The tomb before them was her final inheritance, left behind as a legacy before she disappeared completely. When everyone heard about this inheritance, the shock was immediate, as it represented an enormous opportunity. The great saint then continued explaining that the pressure everyone had felt moments earlier was only the first stage of the trial. Those who could not endure it had already lost. For the losers, there was only a single fate, which was death. Faced with the constant scene of slaughter, with deaths occurring everywhere, and with the great saint making it clear that no one would leave alive if they failed to obtain the inheritance, almost no one noticed that the childlike appearance mixed with that of an old woman concealed someone completely unbalanced. Even so, she did not intend to kill everyone present. To keep part of the group at peace, she decided to spare Yaoqi's descendants, allowing them to leave freely since her inheritance would be of no use to them. Among these descendants, there was a supreme elder who stepped forward to apologize and show respect. He understood that the best course of action was to leave immediately. However, the great saint's decision stirred envy among the others present, who began to wonder why Yaoqi's group was receiving such different treatment. At that moment, Saint Yaoqi asked the great saint for a favor, requesting that Ning be spared. The great saint, curious, asked whether Saint Yaoqi was in love with him or whether the man before her was her husband. Saint Yaoqi immediately denied it, explaining that there was nothing of the sort and that they were merely friends. She also revealed that Ning was the husband of the empress of the demonic sect, which surprised the great saint. Even so, Ning decided to speak up and made it clear that he was interested in the great saint's inheritance, which was why he wished to continue the trial. Upon hearing this, she appeared visibly pleased and declared that the time for the second phase had arrived. Next, the great saint opened 9 gates around everyone. There were gates colored black, gold, and purple, and each color carried a different meaning. Gold represented life, black symbolized death, and purple condemned a person to be trapped in an eternal nightmare. Faced with these options, almost everyone chose the golden gate, as the instinct to survive prevailed. Even so, it was clear that there was some kind of trap hidden there. Even Ning felt suspicious, although he could not understand the great saint's true purpose. Remembering the mind-reading card, Ning activated it and began to analyze the great saint's thoughts. Through this, he realized that the paths of life and death led to exactly the same end, because to live meant to die, and to die meant to live. With this conclusion, he understood that the only gate truly worth choosing was the purple one. As soon as Ning passed through the purple gate, he immediately smelled smoke mixed with blood. When he opened his eyes, he realized he was in the city of the celestial wind. Before him, the people of that city were being massacred one by one at the hands of Yahello. Faced with that absurd scene, Ning did not stand still. He tried to attack Yahello, who began to taunt him, asking whether he truly wished to take revenge for his disciples. If that was his goal, then he should kill him quickly. Otherwise, everyone would continue to die. At that moment, Ning was enveloped by thoughts filled with death and vengeance, swearing to eliminate everyone responsible. However, he realized that this was a malicious aura. If he followed that impulse, he would end up killing endlessly until he died from exhaustion. Understanding this, Ning managed to regain his clarity. He realized that he was trapped within an illusion, not a real situation. The moment he reached that awareness, he awakened as if emerging from a nightmare, which was precisely the purpose of that gate. When he opened his eyes, Ning found Luo Wuqing in front of him, welcoming him. He explained that he had had a strange dream in which the city of the celestial wind was under attack, and he fought desperately to protect everyone who lived there. In response, Luo Wuqing commented that Ning was probably tired from training and said that she would help him relax. However, at the moment when a more intimate action occurred, Ning realized that Luo Wuqing did not usually behave that way. This made it clear that the performance of the being before him was not convincing. As soon as Ning had this realization, the illusion intensified. Not only was Luo Wuqing present, but the Mother of the West and Saint Yaoqi also appeared. This made it evident that it was no longer an individual challenge, but 3 against 1. The illusion's first move caused the immortal spring to appear. According to Saint Yaoqi, that spring contained Ning's spiritual uncle. Whenever she entered that spring to bathe, she could not help but think of the greatness of the patriarch she had known in the past. Before Ning could react, the Mother of the West and Luo Wuqing advanced toward him, implying that they would break through together with him. At that instant, Ning understood the true danger of that trial. If he could not resist that ordeal, he would be drowned in lust until he was completely drained and killed. Moreover, none of the 3 were acting naturally, which made it even easier to realize that all of it was nothing more than illusions and tricks. However, The more Ning reinforced this awareness, the more intense and aggressive the illusion became. Countless women began to appear and advance toward him without pause. When he realized that he was on the verge of surrendering to lust, Ning activated the record of God, completely sealing the space around him and purifying the entire illusion in a single moment. With that, he managed to find the exit of that gate and crossed into a new location. Even so, it was impossible to tell whether this was another dream or if he had truly arrived in a different space, outside the previous illusion. In this new environment, two figures immediately caught Ning's attention. They were two men, and he instinctively stepped back, questioning whether this was also part of some illusion. To be certain, he used the mind-reading card. When he did, he realized that the two deeply admired him in their thoughts, almost as if they worshipped him. This left Ning somewhat embarrassed, but it also confirmed that he had returned to reality. Approaching Ling Ao, Ning asked when he had arrived. The answer was that he had just returned at that very moment. This surprised Ning, since he believed that Ling Ao had also passed through the Purple Gate. However, it became clear that Ling Ao and the other man had gone through the Golden Gate. Ling Ao then explained that after entering the Golden Gate, he encountered several evil spirits at the peak of the Earth Realm and only managed to reach that place after killing all of them. This explanation left Ning extremely angry, as it seemed that the system had lied to him. However, the system itself clarified that there had been no lie. The great sage had been thinking about something else at that moment, which caused a delay in her thoughts and led Ning to draw hasty conclusions. Noticing Ning's unease, Ling Ao asked whether he had passed through the Purple Gate. When Ning confirmed it, everyone around was shocked because until then, no one who had entered that gate had returned. For causing such astonishment, Ning ended up receiving a shadow tracking sword. Thanks to his tenfold superior comprehension, he managed to master it quickly, and his physique was also strengthened. Even so, Ning was not satisfied. He wanted to know how he could further strengthen his own body. While he reflected on this, someone in the background wondered why Ryo Zuning had not died yet. However, before that thought could gain importance, something even more impressive happened. An island suddenly appeared in the center of a vast lake. On a tree located on that island, there was an absurd number of spiritual and immortal weapons. Faced with this sight, someone tried to rush forward to seize one of the weapons, but was immediately repelled by a violent blow to the face. Soon after, a woman dressed entirely in white manifested, making it clear that anyone who dared to break the rules of the third great sage would be killed without exception. It became evident that this woman was the elder sister of the little girl who had appeared at the beginning of the trial. This revelation left everyone confused, as no one understood how the external examiner could be different from the one now standing before them. Amid this general confusion, the woman in white herself explained that the figure outside was merely a remnant. The true person in charge of the trial and the real examiner had always been her. In any case, the third trial was connected to the ancient tree that stood behind the third great sage. To participate, it was mandatory to form a team of exactly 10 people. The ancient tree would give rise to a corresponding number of light specters, and each one of them represented a weapon. Among those spiritual weapons, there was necessarily one immortal weapon. In simple terms, everyone there could at the very least obtain a spiritual weapon, and, if lucky, even an immortal treasure. However, there was a massive problem. The only person who would be able to leave that place alive would be the one who obtained the immortal weapon. Since 10 people were required to unlock a single weapon, this meant that at least 9 would die. It was not possible to take all the available weapons, as there would not be enough people. That trial was, from the very beginning, a game of death. Faced with this, Ning commented that the true meaning of becoming a god was to destroy the path of the emperor. That statement seemed confusing to many, but the third great sage immediately realized that Ning had understood something important. In short, Ning understood that on the path of cultivation, for someone to become a god, it was necessary to confront countless emperors, which always culminated in a colossal battle. The third great sage's goal was precisely to recreate this scenario, using the immortal weapon as bait to force the participants to destroy one another. Obviously, it would not be as simple as merely reaching the weapon and taking it. That island concealed additional dangers. Upon realizing this, the third great sage showed even greater interest in Ning, becoming visibly excited by his perception. For this reason, she decided that the third trial would begin precisely with his group. Ning quickly analyzed his team. There were 6 disciples of the righteous path and 3 powerful cultivators from the celestial realm. Even so, he was certain that since they were there in search of weapons, none of them had good intentions. Before the trial began, the great saint made several rules clear. As soon as the third stage started, no one would be able to see the light weapons as before. In addition, once someone touched a point of light representing a weapon, the choice became final. The weapon could not be exchanged or stolen until the bearer's death. If someone did not touch any weapon, they would be considered a failure and would die all the same. With all the rules established, the moment the group arrived on the island, they were immediately attacked by a strange black black beast. Ning managed to evade the first attack, but soon realized something even more dangerous. He was being attacked stealthily by his own teammates. Their objective was clear. They wanted to kill Ning, as they considered him the weakest in the group. To them, eliminating him was merely a necessary sacrifice. Turning around, Ning recognized the main aggressor. It was Lin Xiaoyao, the prince who had appeared at the beginning and who showed interest in Luo Wuqing. Lin Xiaoyao mocked Ning, implying that he did not need to worry about what would happen after his death, because he himself would take care of his wife. That statement revealed his despicable character and immediately ignited Ning's fury. Without hesitation, Ning activated his sword art along with his thunder spiritual vein. In a single movement, he unleashed simultaneous attacks, striking several people at the same time and turning the beginning of the third trial into a true massacre. As a result, at least 4 people were eliminated quickly, leaving only Lin Xiaoyao and one other participant, who clearly would not survive for long. Ning appeared behind him without any warning, pressed his hand against his head, and hurled him directly toward the monsters in the lake, sealing his fate. Upon witnessing that scene, Ling Ao began to praise Ning, extolling his strength and saying that he was exceptional. However, the real problem of the situation lay elsewhere. While Ning dealt with those 6 opponents, the 3 who had survived were already advancing toward the spheres of light that represented the weapons. Realizing this, Ning entered a state of urgency and activated his treasure hunting card, a resource he had prepared with great effort over the course of an entire hour. Even so, he found himself facing a critical dilemma, since only one person could obtain the immortal weapon and leave that place alive. Without hesitation, Ning rushed toward one of the glowing spheres. One of the disciples noticed Ning's desperation as he focused on a specific point and quickly came to a hasty conclusion. He believed that Ning, as the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect and the husband of a powerful woman, possessed some special method to identify the true immortal weapon. Driven by that thought, the disciple attacked Ning, sending him flying, and then ran toward the sphere that Ning seemed to be pursuing. The scene left everyone around shocked because, in the end, the one who obtained the seemingly most valuable spiritual weapon was just an ordinary participant, someone without any distinction. However, Ning had never made that kind of mistake. The sphere he used as the main target was nothing more than bait. His true objective had always been something else. He deliberately deceived his opponent to ensure that no one would compete for the weapon that truly mattered. In the end, the immortal weapon Ning obtained was an inverted harp, similar to a guitar, known as the guten. As soon as the other participant realized what had happened, he became completely enraged, accusing Ning of deceiving him and claiming that the weapon should have been his. To Ning, that made no sense at all. Each person had made their own choice, and he had simply executed his strategy better. Success was the result of that, and the failure of others was not his responsibility. While Ling Ao continued praising Ning, the remaining participants were shocked by the coldness and audacity of his actions. As a reward for this display of decisiveness and composure, Ning received an increase in his defense. This surprised many, but it was accepted as part of the judgment. With the immortal weapon already decided, the third great sage eliminated all the remaining participants without any mercy. After that, she commented that she had underestimated Ning's abilities. In response, Ning said that, judging by her tone, it seemed she felt some attachment to that weapon. If she wished, he could return it. That response left the third great sage visibly irritated, as she made it clear that she was not someone petty enough for that. Soon after, she declared that it was time for the others to proceed to the next stage. Meanwhile, Ning reflected in silence. According to the great sage, the trial had only 3 stages, but he felt it was still too early to lower his guard. Moreover, he needed to make the immortal weapon officially recognize him as its master as soon as possible, ensuring his safety. As soon as Ning used his blood essence to form a contract with the weapon's soul, he realized just how absurd it truly was. The guten bonded directly to his soul, making it impossible to be stolen. In addition, the weapon allowed direct attacks on the souls of opponents, an extremely dangerous and unbalanced power. At that moment, Ning understood that he had obtained not just an immortal treasure, but a weapon capable of completely redefining his future battles. In the case of that weapon, no common form of protection worked. It did not matter whether it was energy defenses, body techniques, or any other method. It was impossible to confront it head-on. To make matters even more extreme, because Ning had obtained the immortal weapon, his Tao of music also evolved directly, reaching a much higher level. Even in the face of all this, the thought that crossed Ning's mind was unexpected. Since the weapon was connected to his soul, he realized that when he played the instrument of the Great Sage, it was as if he were playing the Great Sage herself. That realization was strange and uncomfortable, but he chose to ignore it. About an hour hour later, only a few people managed to complete the trial. Seeing this, Ling Ao began to celebrate, believing that they had all passed the judgment. However, the great sage quickly interrupted the celebration, stating that the final stage was still missing. After that declaration, she summoned a gigantic pair of scissors before everyone. She then explained that if someone managed to pass the final stage, the entire inheritance and the countless treasures stored within the tomb would be given to the winners. Faced with that promise, the remaining participants became extremely excited. Many already saw themselves as victors, firmly believing they would succeed. However, the great sage had not yet explained what the final stage would be. When she finally revealed it, it became clear that although it was simpler in concept than the previous trials, it was by no means easy. The final stage consisted of defeating the third great sage. The revelation left everyone in shock. It made no sense at all. Even if everyone joined forces, there would be no real chance of defeating her in direct combat. In response to the general reaction, the great sage clarified that it would not be a group fight. The final challenge would take place individually, one-on-one. At that moment, the true terror of the judgment finally began to reveal itself. Faced with that situation, everyone became outraged, as it was impossible to face someone of that level of power. The discontent spread quickly, with many cultivators complaining and expressing frustration. Realizing this, the great saint decided to intervene and stated that she would reduce her own level to the same realm as the challengers. She made it clear that this would not change much, because even when she was in that realm during her youth, she had been completely invincible. With this apparent advantage, the onlookers ended up accepting the challenge. The first to step forward was someone at the peak of the Heaven King realm. The number of realms in cultivation always caused confusion, but that mattered little at that moment. The great saint then reduced her power, assuming the strength she had at 20 years of age, still at the peak of the Heaven King realm. Upon noticing this, Ning felt uncomfortable and questioned the system about how she could be so powerful at that age. To him, it seemed unfair, since theoretically he should have been the strongest for possessing the system. The system explained that age had no direct relation to power, reminding him that Ning himself had crossed 4 realms in just a few months, which made that kind of comparison meaningless. When the fight began, the young version of the great saint defeated him with just 2 or 3 strikes. That made it clear that the claim that she was invincible within her own realm was no exaggeration at all. In addition, Ning realized that the attack she used demonstrated an extremely high level of mastery, even while she was limited to the Heaven realm. After that demonstration, no other participant had the courage to step forward. Therefore, the next to enter combat was Ning. As soon as the fight began, the 20-year-old version of the great saint tried to end it with a single move. Ning, however, would not allow something so simple. He quickly drew his guti and executed the sound rupture technique, surprising the great saint. As a result of that action, he obtained a supreme sound array. Even though she was surprised, the great saint realized that she would need to use a second move to finish the fight. However, Ning also responded with a second attack. Using the newly acquired array, he unleashed a powerful spiritual suppression and advanced directly toward her. The result was confusing at first glance, but it became clear that for a brief moment the great saint was restrained. The audience reacted with excitement, believing that this showed great vigor on Ning's part. However, that situation quickly proved to be almost fatal for him. The great saint counterattacked with a direct blow, striking him squarely and violently, hurling him to the ground. Despite that, he survived. She was genuinely surprised because that strike should have completely disfigured Ning's face. However, there seemed to be something special about him. In fact, there was, and it was connected to his strange title, known as the Shameless title. Setting that peculiarity aside, Ning asked whether he had won the fight. In response, the great saint began to laugh. Then she enveloped him within a massive sphere of energy and declared that the legacy of the third great sage had finally found a successor. Sometime later, Ning was taken to the inheritance space of the great empress. She explained that the spheres around them contained the entire inheritance, all the effort and knowledge accumulated throughout her life. Hearing this, Ning asked whether, upon receiving this inheritance, he would be able to fly freely through the skies. The answer was that it would depend on his luck. He then asked whether he could reach the immortal emperor realm. The answer was no, as was the possibility of reaching the celestial realm. That clearly left him dissatisfied, because in his view, the inheritance did not seem to be very useful. Faced with that reaction, the third great sage became slightly irritated, but remained calm. She explained that it was better to teach someone how to fish than to simply hand over a ready-made fish. The inheritance did not exist to grant immediate power, but to help him grow in many ways over time. She also clarified the reason she was called the third great sage. It was because she had reached the sage level in the paths of palm, fist, and music. Hearing this, Ning became completely confused, as he believed that the highest level of the Tao was the pinnacle. The concept of a sage level was something entirely new to him. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the third great sage did not miss the chance to subtly provoke Ning. Then she explained that below the great emperor, the highest level of the Tao was was indeed the pinnacle. However, within the great Emperor realm, there also existed the Sage level, reserved only for those who truly surpassed the common limits of cultivation. In addition, there was also the God level, which had several stages above it, although that topic was something for the future. In short, with the continuous strengthening of Ning's abilities, he would eventually become invincible within his own realm. To confirm his understanding, Ning asked whether, upon reaching the Great Emperor level, his comprehension of the Tao could also reach the Sage level. The third Great Sage confirmed that it could. Noticing that Ning still showed some disbelief, she suggested that he experience a little of the strange sphere that contained the Tao of music. Even so, she made it clear that she did not intend to fully transfer that Tao to him, since Ning's Tao of music was already at a very high level. Faced with this, Ning began to tease her in a relaxed manner, which ended up irritating the third Great Sage. Even so, she ultimately offered the sphere, allowing him to learn in an unusual way. As soon as those spheres of energy entered Ning's spiritual sea, he felt countless flows of power running through his entire body. During this process, Ning began to learn the paths of the palm and the fist, since the Tao of music was not directly transmitted by the third Great Sage. Combining this with his tenfold amplified comprehension, he managed to understand the Tao of the palm. Even so, he commented that he did not feel qualified enough. The third Great Sage explained that this was normal and that it would take a few months for him to complete that learning. Even so, Ning stated that he had only managed to reach the level of proficiency. Hearing this, the third Great Sage was completely shocked. Based on her own experience, it had taken her about 10 years to reach that level, while Ning had taken only 30 minutes. Faced with this fact, the third Great Sage began to reflect that, if Ning reached the Great Emperor level, he would certainly have the ability to enter the God realm. Following that line of thought, she warned him not to go around saying that he learned things in half an hour, because that could bring serious trouble. She explained that the world was immense and that there were still many unconquered lands, including restricted regions capable of killing even a powerful emperor in a single instant. Ning, in turn, was even more shocked to realize that there were other continents within the same world, although the third Great Sage did not go into detail about that topic. Next, she explained that, over time, most cultivators relied on the understanding of the basic laws of heaven and earth to evolve, such as wind, fire, thunder, lightning, and many others. Combined with the divine physique that Ning possessed, he would have a much greater ease in learning these basic laws compared to ordinary cultivators. As a result, in the future, he could even master more complex laws, such as the law of life. She explained this because there were rumors that someone with a divine physique could deprive even a great emperor of their own life. In simple terms, Ning needed to be extremely careful about what he learned, with whom he shared that knowledge, and how much of his progress he revealed. If he was not strong enough, he could end up being killed simply because of the special physique he possessed. To help him even more, the third Great Sage offered a celestial classification skill that she herself had created. At first, Ning did not show much interest, since he possessed the God record and saw no use in an apparently weaker skill. However, that technique cultivated the three Great Taoists simultaneously at the Sage level. In addition, the third Great Sage explained that she offered this skill because she knew that Ning was practicing the 3,000 Great Taoists. According to her, the more paths someone tried to walk, the more difficult it would be to advance. Hearing this, Ning finally understood that the third Great Sage had mastered the Taoists of the fist, the palm, and music precisely because of this special skill. If you want, I can standardize Tao terms, simplify things even further, or align this section with the previous ones to maintain full consistency. The Great Sage agreed that, by combining the inheritance with Ning's divine physique, he could achieve a much greater comprehension than that of an ordinary sage. In her view, it was not impossible that, in the future, Ning could become someone at the same level as one of the sages of the 3,000 Great Worlds. That possibility immediately interested Ning, especially when he realized that the technique did not interfere with the God record, which made everything even safer for him. After making this clear, the Great Sage disappeared, while Ning declared internally that he would not disappoint her and that he would use that inheritance in the best possible way. Outside, Saint Yaochi began to find it strange that no one had returned yet. At that moment, the three who had accompanied Ning during the fight were spat out of the tomb. Soon after, the third Great Sage announced to everyone that she had found a worthy successor. That declaration caused an uproar, leading the group connected to Luo Wuqing to question whether the successor belonged to any of their families or lineages. Meanwhile, Saint Yaochi showed concern about the whereabouts of the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect. Upon hearing this, the Supreme Elder became furious, asking where the patriarch had gone, and warning that if the Empress discovered the situation, a great commotion would certainly occur. Amid the tension, the Great Saint stated that she had not killed anyone and revealed that the young man everyone was talking about was, at that very moment, accepting her inheritance. That information surprised many, as most believed that some saint's son would be chosen. Even so, the news was considered positive. The Supreme Elder was extremely satisfied, while other elders began to ask whether they could now be released, since there was no inheritance left. However, the Great Saint made it clear that no one would leave until Ning had fully learned her inheritance. This became a major problem, as that process could take a very long time, and no one there had the power to interfere. Unexpectedly, a massive explosion occurred inside the tomb. The source was Ning himself, who had comprehended the rest of the inheritance in just half an hour. In addition, his cultivation had already reached the 9-star Earth King realm, with only one more star remaining to reach the Heaven realm. This was shocking, because when he had entered that place, he possessed only 4 stars, and now he had advanced 5 levels at once. With the inheritance completely mastered, the Great Saint announced that everyone would be sent outside alive. Furthermore, all the treasures within the tomb would be given to Ning. Faced with this situation, 2 elders from other sects began to whisper among themselves that they could not allow Ning to become even stronger. To them, once they left that place, they would find a way to eliminate the young man. Before departing, Ning politely thanked the Great Elder, which left her slightly surprised. Ignoring the fate of the city, she asked the saint whether she could take her bones to be buried alongside those of her friend, the Great Saint Yao Xuan. After this request, the narrative returned to a distant past. In the past, the Great Sage was training beneath a waterfall when an old companion appeared. That woman was the Great Saint Yao Xuan. The two began to play together in the water, like carefree old friends. Sometime later, the third Great Sage spoke about her frustration at not being able to break through to the immortal Emperor realm for a long time. Even though she was disappointed, she stated that she would continue striving to walk the correct path and one day become a goddess. After hearing this, Yao Xuan declared that she would follow the same path as the Great Sage, accompanying her on that journey. However, time passed, many battles were fought, and much blood was shed. In the end, they followed different paths and never met again. After that long flashback, Ning asked why Great Yao Xuan was helping the Great Sage relax in that way. Faced with the question, the Great Sage simply stated that she would not answer. Great Saint Yao Xuan made it clear that if Ning continued making unnecessary comments, she would seal him there forever alongside her. Then she returned to the main topic. The sacred sect confirmed that it would indeed take the bones of the Great Sage. Since she had fulfilled her final wish, and had also granted her inheritance to Ning, she could finally rest in peace. Shortly afterward, Saint Yao Xuan asked whether Ning would like to return with her to the sacred sect. Ning knew that if he did that instead of returning home, his wife would certainly not be pleased. At the same time, he could not simply reject the saint directly. Before he could make a decision, the Supreme Elder intervened, stating that it would be better for Ning to return immediately to the celestial demonic sect, since he had just received the inheritance and all the treasures of the tomb. This meant that many people would come after him to steal them. Faced with that explanation, Ning had no choice and politely declined Saint Yao Xuan's invitation, saying that on this occasion he could not accompany her. In addition, they could not remain there for long, because the tomb began to collapse as there was no longer any inheritance inside it. As soon as Ning and the Supreme Elder left the tomb, they found his mount dead. The ones responsible were 2 elders from other sects, known as Tianfeng and Jin Mei. It did not matter who was who because the goal of both was clear. They wanted to steal all the treasures that Ning was carrying. The Supreme Elder obviously would not allow that. The two knew that the Supreme Elder was stronger than them, so they brought in a third ally. It was the leader of the first sword sect, known as the Benevolent Sword. Despite the title, his actions were anything but benevolent. He attacked the Supreme Elder directly, revealing that he possessed cultivation at the true immortal Emperor realm, which greatly surprised the Supreme Elder. Realizing the danger, he tried to make Ning escape immediately. The Benevolent Sword recognized that the man before him was the patriarch of the celestial demonic sect, and without hesitation, unleashed his most powerful attack, causing a massive explosion. However, the attack did not kill Ning, which was absurd. A cultivator of that level should not fail to kill someone in the Earth King realm. Ning himself was shocked, and even wondered if his face was indestructible. The system confirmed that this was the effect of his special title, but made it clear that if he were hit anywhere else on his body, he would die instantly. The failure made the Benevolent Sword even more furious. He attacked again, and Ning, even while trying to defend himself, was violently thrown backward. He only survived because Saint Yao Xuan caught him before he collided with a wall. This enraged the Benevolent Sword even more, because he was fighting seriously and was still being obstructed. With no alternatives left, Ning resorted to his special resources. He used a short-distance teleportation card and ended up summoning none other than the third Great Sage. Even in front of her, the Benevolent Sword looked down on her presence, claiming that fighting a ghost was nothing special, and that she would only be able to perform 1 or 2 attacks. attacks. The third great sage, irritated, decided to take advantage of the opportunity to show Ning her true fist and palm abilities. Before each strike, she explained every movement in detail, demonstrating extremely powerful techniques. The situation became ironic, as the benevolent sword, who had looked down on the sage, could barely withstand her attacks. However, before he could be defeated, a new enemy appeared. The leader of the benevolent sword arrived on the battlefield. It was the righteous great emperor, who, with a single movement, completely suppressed the third great sage. In her current state, being only a spirit and having been dead for a long time, there was not much she could do. Faced with this, the third great sage felt deep regret. In the end, she realized that she would not be able to fulfill her final wish, which was to have her bones buried alongside those of her friend, the great saint Yao Xuan. The spirit of the great saint Yao Xuan began to fade, but Ning managed to save her temporarily. Even so, it was clear that this condition would not last for long. She still existed, but her presence was unstable and limited. On the side of the righteous great emperor, the situation began to raise suspicions. He started to realize that Ning was not an ordinary person, because he had received a direct attack from him and was still alive. That made no sense for someone in the Earth King realm. At that moment, Ning revealed that he possessed a great emperor summoning card, capable of executing only a single attack before dissipating. Even being a one-time use item, that card gave him enough confidence not to retreat. The righteous great emperor questioned whether Ning truly intended to kill himself, since the difference in realms between them was absurd. Even so, Ning maintained his stance and made it clear that he would not flee like the emperor's disciple had done earlier, even though that sounded contradictory, considering that he had needed help not long before. Next, Ning did something unexpected. He activated another summoning and brought his wife, Luo Wuqing, who appeared as the true final force in that situation. Along with her, inexplicably, the Queen Mother of the West also appeared. For a brief moment, both were confused, as one was about to take a bath and the other was preparing to sleep, when they were suddenly pulled into the void. As soon as Luo Wuqing realized that she had been summoned by Ning, her attention immediately turned to his condition. Her reaction was instinctive, quickly identifying who had tried to injure him. Ning's posture, almost like that of a child pointing at the culprit, only made the situation even more tense. Luo Wuqing questioned whether the great righteous emperor lacked even a minimum of common sense, since attacking someone of the Earth King realm was completely inappropriate. In response, the great righteous emperor began to question why the Queen Mother of the West was at Ning's side, as she had always remained neutral until then. The answer came through Luo Wuqing's attitude, as she declared that anyone who dared to touch her husband would suffer the consequences. Her anger reached such a level that she summoned an immortal weapon, which made the emperor realize the real danger of the situation. He knew that if a battle of that level unfolded there, entire mountains could be erased from existence. Even so, Luo Wuqing showed no hesitation. Meanwhile, the great Saint Yao Xuan instructed Ning to observe that battle carefully, as it was rare for anyone to have the opportunity to see two emperors confront each other directly. When the fight began, shockwaves spread with every clash of attacks. The presence of the Queen Mother of the West was essential to contain the collateral damage, preventing everyone there from being annihilated. In the midst of the confrontation, the Queen Mother of the West even provoked Luo Wuqing, warning her to be careful and not end up losing her own husband. Luo Wuqing, in turn, made it clear that the Queen Mother of the West was there for a specific purpose and should protect Ning while she fought without any restraint. After a few decisive blows, the great righteous emperor was defeated. However, it was revealed that this was not his true body, but merely a shadow projected from afar, revealing his cautious nature. Even so, the consequences were severe. Luo Wuqing officially became an enemy of the Great Righteous Alliance. Some disciples tried to flee, but were eliminated by her with extreme ease. Soon after, Luo Wuqing immediately turned to Ning, checking if he was all right. The positive answer led to a brief moment of intimacy between the couple, which caused the Queen Mother of the West to warn them to avoid such behavior in public. She also commented ironically that the teleportation had been completely inappropriate, especially considering what could have happened if she had been summoned in the middle of a bath. Ning did not reveal that he had used a system card to perform the summoning. Luo Wuqing chose not to press the matter, believing that he had his own reasons. Even so, the Queen Mother of the West began to reflect that Ning was becoming increasingly mysterious. Finally, the spirit of the third great sage began to dissipate completely. In response, Saint Yao Xuan stated that it would be proper to take her remains to be buried alongside the great Saint Yao Xuan, allowing her to finally rest in peace. The Queen Mother of the West explained that there was no more time to take the remains of the third great sage, as the sacred sect and Yao Xuan were very far away. For this reason, the spirit of the great sage would have to dissipate first. The great sage accepted this decision calmly, knowing that in the end, she would reunite with her friend in the afterlife. Before disappearing, she thanked Ning for accepting her inheritance and following her path. The scene then changed. Elsewhere, more specifically in the celestial spiritual domain of Zongo, the great righteous emperor suffered severe internal injuries. The destruction of his shadow had caused a powerful impact on his true body. At that moment, he received a direct communication from the god of the void. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the emperor began to complain, claiming that the Queen Mother of the West and the Empress of the celestial demonic sect had interfered directly, which could compromise his plans. The god of the void, however, remained calm. He explained that this was already expected, as he had reached a higher realm. Even though he was not a true god, he stood above the level of an ordinary great emperor, existing as a kind of false god. To him, it was only a matter of time before the sacred sect, the celestial demonic sect, and the Queen Mother of the West would be crushed beneath his feet. Half a month later, already back at the celestial demonic sect, Ning was recovering from his injuries while being treated by his wife, Luo Wuqing. He wished to show his gratitude in a more intense way. But before anything could happen, Luo Wuqing suggested that they examine the ring left behind by the third great sage, as it was said to contain many treasures. When Ning investigated the ring, a portal suddenly appeared and pulled him inside. Within it, there was nothing but a large chest filled with shining aura. It seemed to indicate that the treasure was there, but the reality was different. Each time Ning opened a chest, another one appeared inside it, repeating the process countless times, like Russian dolls nested within one another. When he opened the final chest, the great sage herself appeared, explaining that the true treasure was her inheritance. Aside from that, there was nothing else of value. Even so, she handed a scroll to Ning, and the moment he touched it, he was immediately expelled from the ring. Outside, Luo Wuqing showed no surprise. She already knew there would be no great riches inside, as the third great sage was known not only for being extremely poor among the great emperors, but also for being quite miserly. Anyone expecting material rewards would end up disappointed. In the end, all Ning received was the scroll. Even so, Luo Wuqing explained that it was extremely valuable. Its contents were the formula for a secret pill capable of raising the level of the physical body of whoever consumed it. Most of the ingredients were available within the celestial demonic sect, but some rare items, such as the Thunderheart and the 9 Phoenix Frostgrass, did not exist there and would need to be sought elsewhere. Upon hearing this, Ning decided that he needed to strengthen himself on his own. He refused Luo Wuqing's direct help, as he did not want to rely on anyone, even knowing that it would make everything faster. Furthermore, the sect was already facing internal tensions, and an open search for rare ingredients could attract unwanted attention. Even so, Ning made it clear that he would accept help only in private study sessions. The next day, he woke up in a great mood, as the previous night had been quite productive. Putting that aside, he reflected on his progress. He had already mastered the Tao of music, the Tao of the sword, and the Tao of the palm. The only one left was the Tao of the fist. To resolve this, Ning went to the sect's storage. There, he met Goyan, who was deeply surprised to realize that Ning had reached the 9-star Earth King realm in just a few months. Because of all these events, Ning awakened a new ability called Martial Art Restoration. This ability was extremely powerful. Whenever Ning possessed half of a technique, or even less than that, he could correct, complete, and learn the martial arts solely from that fragment. It was an absurd ability, almost unfair, and yet another of his special assets. After that, Ning informed Guyan that he intended to go to the 5th floor of the storage. In response, Guyan immediately ordered a servant to move all martial art techniques from the 1st to the 4th floor. Even Ning did not fully understand the reason for that sudden decision, but he accepted it without question. While walking through the storage library, Ning reflected on what he needed to do. To truly awaken the violent and intimidating fist of the third great sage, he would have to find a technique that combined different styles, such as the rock fist, the demon god fist, and other fist-based martial arts. It was then that Ning found a technique called tyrannical flame fist. It was incomplete, but thanks to his restoration ability, the system offered the option to reconstruct it. As soon as Ning accepted and tested the technique, it became evident how powerful it was. Even using only a fraction of its power, violent flames began to spread around him to the point that people outside believed the storage was being destroyed. Guyan had already expected trouble, but what happened surpassed any prediction. He quickly realized that Ning was using the tyrannical flame fist, which made no sense, since that technique should have been incomplete. Even so, because he had surprised Guyan, Ning received another reward, the solar light aura absorption ability. This new ability matched perfectly with the tyrannical flame fist. Without wasting time, Ning fused the two techniques. The result was terrifying. Not only Ning's body, but even his clothes began to burn with flames, causing many cultivators below to watch him with admiration and fear. Gu Yan grew increasingly uneasy. The combination of the sun and moon auras that Ning already possessed was extremely rare. Using these two forces together could result either in an absolute disaster or in an unbelievable success. Because of all this commotion, even Luo Wuqing appeared at the scene. Her presence ensured that, at least after that chaos, the repository would remain safe. From Ning's perspective, the sensation was different. The power he was releasing was so great that, according to Luo Wuqing, his body already resembled the great Dao body. This state allowed a person to push their understanding of the Dao to its utmost limits. The manifestation of that gigantic aura indicated that Ning had deeply comprehended the tyrannical flame fist. Even so, Luo Wuqing made it clear that he had not fully mastered the technique. At that moment, Ning was still in the middle of the deduction process, trying to understand everything while using the cultivation method he had received from the great sage. The problem was that each attempt resulted in new explosions, destroying parts of the repository and leaving Gu Yan increasingly traumatized. Before everything could be completely reduced to ruins, Luo Wuqing protected all the treasures in the area. She then warned the elders and cultivators present that no one should interrupt Ning. He had entered a critical state of deduction. Any interference could cause a deviation in cultivation and prevent his enlightenment. Meanwhile, Ning remained completely focused, unleashing countless consecutive strikes without any concern for the surrounding environment. Buildings and structures were continuously destroyed. To Luo Wuqing, this was not a problem, since everything could be rebuilt later. She also emphasized that Ning was developing not only the Dao of the fist, but also the Dao of music, and that the other cultivators should take advantage of that opportunity to improve their own paths. Inspired by this, the disciples around Ning also began to cultivate. Sometime later, Ning finally reached the incomparable dominance of the burning divine flame. With that, he not only elevated his Dao of the fist, but also drastically strengthened his physique, achieving two breakthroughs at the same time. To top it all off, for having surprised everyone once again, Ning received a new item, the Meteor Gloves, an absurdly powerful immortal weapon. Moreover, it was an exclusive weapon, tailor-made specifically for him. In short, no one could take anything from him. Ning was only becoming more and more overpowered. Even after causing all that destruction and spending some time cultivating, he admitted that he still had not deduced enough of the technique. That meant that, in the future, more buildings would probably be destroyed in the process. Just by hearing this statement, the disciples and elders responsible for the repository began to look at Ning with suspicion. At that moment, a messenger from the Tianbao Holy Land appeared and invited Ning to go to the city of Shenzhou, where an auction held every year would take place. Since the sect was still under reconstruction, they decided to move to a more suitable location before continuing the conversation. Returning to the topic, the auction itself did not spark much immediate interest, but the messenger explained that it was the largest auction in the entire domain, including the Tianbao Holy Land itself. There were countless rare treasures, which made the visit worthwhile even if there was no intention to buy anything. What truly caught Ning's attention was the reason why his clan had been invited, since that did not seem to make much sense. The messenger explained that it was obvious because of Ning's fame. After the battle at the Great Emperor's tomb, admiration for the patriarch had increased drastically. Ning did not fully believe that justification, but the messenger looked visibly dejected, as he was being completely honest. The messenger also commented that there were many beautiful young women in Shenzhou, which made the trip even more interesting. The problem was that this comment was made right in front of Ning's wife, showing an absurd level of boldness. Luo Wuqing remarked that the Tianbao Holy Land auction had always been famous for its high-level treasures. Because of that, she recommended that Ning go, since there was a chance he might find the herb he needed so badly. Since Luo Wuqing had already agreed, there was no reason for Ning to refuse. Furthermore, even with the delicate relationship between the Supreme Divine Kingdom and the Celestial Demon Sect, she would take precautions to protect him. Suddenly, Luo Wuqing pulled Ning close and kissed him, transferring a power to him. In truth, she implanted a formation inside his body, capable of protecting him from a single sneak attack. Once that defense was broken, Ning would be notified immediately. With that, he was relatively safe. In addition, Luo Wuqing handed him money and an ice larva mask, explaining it would be used to conceal his identity. When Ning tested the mask, the moment he put it on, his appearance became extremely ugly. He even questioned whether he really needed to hide himself like that. But Luo Wuqing insisted, saying it was for his own safety. She then teased him, hinting that perhaps he wanted to attract the attention of some beautiful girl in Shenzhou. Before the situation escalated, Ning moved closer to her and suggested that maybe she was jealous because of the mask. In response, she retorted that she was actually just worried about his attractive physique. Meanwhile, the messenger watched everything in silence. At first, he believed that Ning was with the Empress merely because of her beauty, but after that interaction, he realized that the situation was far more complex. Sometime later, the group finally arrived in the city of Shenzhou, riding Shadow Wind horses, which were second-level monsters of the Tianbao sacred sect. As soon as they arrived, many people began running toward the so-called 9 Thunderwind Steps. Curious, Ning asked what that was. It was then explained that it was an ancient legend. Only the strong could reach the top, and those who reached the 8th step would earn the chance to dine with the princess. This princess was one of the 3 great beauties of Shenzhou, the city they were in. Upon hearing that explanation, the protagonist's white-haired companion, whose name was still unknown, commented that if that was the case, they should climb the steps immediately and try their luck. His goal was not to get close to the princess, but to comprehend the Tao of Thunder contained within the 9 steps. Because of that, Ning ended up following his companion. At that moment, in the distance, a young woman appeared, commenting that the Tianbao Holy Land had sent a milk horse. The remark sounded strange and confusing, but it seemed to have some indirect connection to Ning, so it was simply ignored. Soon after, the focus returned entirely to the path ahead. The group arrived at an area known as the Supreme Divine Kingdom, a heavily protected place filled with guards. That region was the heart of the celestial spiritual domain and was directly under the rules of the Supreme Divine Kingdom, which explained its name. According to the white-haired companion, compared to that place, the Eastern Kingdom was only the 3rd best in terms of prestige and power. Since the Celestial Demon Sect was located in another region, each major sect controlled its own territory as it saw fit, acting practically as local rulers. Many powerful figures circulated in that area, which forced even cultivators to act with extreme caution while moving through the region. Shortly after, a woman announced that the Terrace of the 9 Thunder and Wind Steps was open once again. This woman was Princess Yahello, who was responsible for the place. She explained that anyone who managed to reach the 8th step would have the right to dine with her. Hearing this, Ning questioned internally why it was so difficult to reach the 8th step, since there were only 9 in total. However, as soon as this thought was expressed, the people around reacted with indignation, claiming that it was easier to climb the heavens than to conquer those steps. Next, Princess Yahello asked who would be the first challenger. The first to step forward was Zhu Yu, the saint of the Holy Land known as Xiaoyao. He stated that he had already heard of the place's fame and wanted to experience it for himself. The moment he stepped onto the first step, lightning immediately began to appear. The white-haired companion explained that those stairs were formed from stones forged from the divine thunder of the Tao. He knew this because he had already tried before and felt it firsthand. On that occasion, he managed to reach the 7th step, but the moment he tried to step onto the 8th, the intensity of the lightning increased several times over. He survived only thanks to a defensive treasure that ended up being destroyed in the process. Since then, he had not dared to try again. Meanwhile, Zhu Yu also managed to reach the 7th step. The instant he attempted to advance to the 8th, he sensed extreme danger and chose to give up, admitting that he was not strong enough. Princess Yuling merely commented that it was a pity. With his curiosity awakened, Ning decided that he also wanted to try. The white-haired companion immediately tried to stop him, explaining that Zugi, the Holy Sun and Immortal Emperor, had failed that challenge. If Ning were to die there, the consequences would be severe, especially because of his wife. Even so, faced with a challenge of that level, Ning felt that he could not simply retreat. When he volunteered to try, many people began to mock him, calling him ordinary and claiming that his appearance did not inspire confidence. Ignoring the comments, Princess Yuling asked who he was. The white-haired companion introduced him simply as Ning, which sounded strange to some, since that was also the name of the patriarch of the Celestial Demon Sect. To make matters worse, the companion even used a nickname that did not match his current appearance at all. Princess Yuling, however, recognized the white-haired companion, remembering that he had reached the 7th step in a previous attempt. As for Ning, he showed no interest whatsoever in the promised dinner. What he truly wanted was to comprehend the Tao of Thunder, even knowing that it involved a real risk to his life. The moment Ning took his first step onto the stair, he immediately realized that something was wrong. It was as if his legs were being held in place, while an invisible pressure began to wrap around him. Because Ning became stuck on the very first step, the people around began to mock him, saying that he was so weak that he could not even get past the beginning of the stairs. However, at that same instant, the system informed Ning that the Terrace of the 9 Thunder and Wind Steps had an inverse effect on those who possessed a divine physique. In simple terms, the first step for Ning was equivalent to the 9th step for anyone else. This meant that he had already started at the highest level of difficulty. Even so, for someone with so many resources and advantages, this did not represent represent a major problem. Simply stepping onto that stair already allowed Ning to directly absorb the Tao of Thunder, which made it clear just how broken the situation was. Since the Tao of Thunder was extremely complex, its comprehension was divided into 10 parts. As Ning began to understand this energy, a huge commotion arose around him. Several bolts of lightning descended from the sky at the same time, a phenomenon that, according to common sense, should only occur when someone reached the 9th step. This left everyone confused, including Princess Yueling, who could not understand why this was happening on the very first step. From Ning's side, however, everything was under control. In addition to the system's assistance, he possessed thunder spiritual veins, which made that pressure practically irrelevant to him. The moment he activated these spiritual veins, he completely shocked everyone present. As a result, he received a thunder resistance pill, which increased his tolerance to that type of energy, as well as a miraculous healing pill capable of rapidly restoring injuries. Without hesitation, Ning consumed the healing pill, since he had no idea what might still happen on the next steps. After that, he continued advancing step by step in a steady manner until he reached the 8th step. By doing so, he had technically already earned the right to the promised dinner, but even then, he showed no intention of stopping. This feat shocked the people around even more. In addition, just by climbing the steps, Ning managed to make a small breakthrough in his understanding of the Tao of Thunder and Wind, something that would require years of effort for any other cultivator. Even so, he decided not to step onto the 9th step. The reason was simple. He wanted to avoid unnecessary trouble, political conflicts, and long explanations in the future. For him, the best choice was to stop there and leave. However, there was one detail he had ignored. By reaching the 8th step, he had automatically gained the right to dine with Princess Yueling. This caused a wave of envy among those present, especially because many considered Ning far too ugly for someone who had overcome such a challenge. Even so, Ning stated that it was time to return and that he had no interest in dining with the princess, since in his view his wife was far more beautiful. This comment angered many people, as he had indirectly compared one of the 3 great beauties of Shenzhou in an unfavorable way. Despite that, Princess Yueling herself invited Ning to dinner and asked when he would be available. He simply replied that it would depend on the situation. This answer deeply surprised Yueling, since almost everyone there was attempting the challenge because of her, while the winner showed complete disinterest. Not long after, the Third Highness of the Supreme Divine Kingdom arrived and asked whether anyone had reached the 9th step. Princess Yueling replied that no one had, but informed him that someone had reached the 8th. The Third Highness commented that this was nothing special. Even so, Princess Yueling decided to meet Ning later and ordered one of her maids to follow him discreetly. Meanwhile, Ning explained to his white-haired companion why he had refused the dinner. To him, that tradition made no sense at all, since it did not seem logical to offer a dinner as a reward for such a dangerous challenge. In his view, it suggested ulterior motives. The white-haired companion agreed that, from that perspective, it really did not make much sense. With the matter settled, both decided that it was time to rest. They needed to find an inn, a task that fell to the white-haired companion. He said that he had already found a good place, and had even prepared horses to take them there. However, when they went to look for the animals, they discovered that his horse had been stolen, which left him completely desperate. To avoid further embarrassment, Ning pulled the white-haired companion aside and said that it was better to focus on preparing for the auction. Later that night, already in his room, Ning cultivated calmly, reflecting on how powerful and advantageous the Tao of Thunder was. To further benefit from that trip, Ning needed to find 2 specific ingredients at the auction the following day. When morning came, already at the Tianbao Holy Land Pavilion, the white-haired companion began to explain that many extremely powerful figures from the celestial domain were present at the venue. He also mentioned that there were private booths on the 2nd floor, reserved only for a few individuals of high status. Considering Ning's position, he could easily sit in the front row. Even so, Ning did not care about that, since his true interest was in the auction treasures, not prestige. In fact, he preferred to remain discreet, as he feared being discovered if he managed to acquire the precious items he was seeking. As he took his seat, Ning noticed that many forces from the city of Shenzhou were present. The white-haired companion explained that, according to his knowledge, only 3 forces possessed great immortals in that domain: the Xiaoyao Holy Land, the Supreme Divine Kingdom, and the Immortal Sword Sect. However, his explanation was interrupted when Princess Yueling appeared at the venue. She was there as a representative of the Supreme Divine Kingdom. Yueling already knew that Ning was present, having been informed by her maid. Even so, she chose not to act immediately, preferring to observe how the situation would unfold. Before the auction began, the person responsible for the announcements appeared. She was an extremely beautiful young woman named Tian, the official auctioneer of the event. Her presence immediately drew the attention of many older cultivators and several men in the hall, including the white-haired companion. Ning, however, was not impressed by her appearance, but rather by her cultivation level. She had already reached the celestial realm and was stronger than him in that regard. As soon as the auction began, the first item presented was an intermediate-level martial arts technique, the divine palm of thunder and wind. That was exactly the technique Ning needed. The problem lay in the starting bid, which was 1 million spirit coins. At that point, Ning realized that he did not know exactly how much money he had received from his wife. When he checked the contents of the spatial ring, he was momentarily stunned. The amount of wealth inside was absurd. The system then informed him that he possessed approximately 1 billion spirit coins. With that amount, Ning felt far more confident. The bids began to rise quickly. Among the participants was the leader of the Scar sect, who offered a bid of 1,600,000 spirit coins. The white-haired companion did some quick mental calculations and concluded that, in theory, they would not have enough money to compete. However, Ning showed no concern and raised the bid to 1,650,000 spirit coins. This surprised the leader of the Scar sect, who immediately raised the amount to 1,800,000. The bidding war continued until it reached 2,500,000 spirit coins, at which point the sect leader gave up, as he did not have sufficient resources to continue. After winning the bid, the white-haired companion asked where so much money was coming from. Ning simply replied that he had a very reliable source. Even so, the companion warned that he might be acting too hastily, since the truly valuable items usually appeared only in the second part of the auction. Before the conversation could continue, Princess Yueling approached Ning and asked if they could have dinner that night. Ning politely declined, explaining that he was busy. This response shocked everyone around, including the princess herself, since nearly everyone there was participating in the auction because of her. As a result, the atmosphere around them grew even more tense and curious. Once that moment had passed, Ning kept his focus on his goals, knowing that he still needed to acquire the remaining ingredients over the course of the auction. Meanwhile, he calmly reflected on his next steps, aware that this journey was still far from over.